and direct ideas, because I've been doing that all along, right? And, Jim, he's just, well, the mayor's, I'm going to do what the mayor does. Okay, what does that mean?
I kind of got that impression from a lot that I've seen is he's like, we're going to keep going on.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, I'm president of the council, and I've done a lot of those things that he wants to keep going on.
Right.
So what does that mean? I mean, I don't understand.
So is that his that's his campaign?
It is.
I want to be John's boss.
I don't understand it.
It's more so that like, hey, things are going good. Why screw it up?
But that's not how it works.
Yeah. No, of course not. But
because the world keeps changing.
Yes.
Because it's funny. Like this was something. It was like I was asking everybody like, what's the number one? Like anytime I see people that live inside the city, I'm like, what's the number one issue? And like, I don't know. And then I'm like, would you believe that it's deer? And they're like, no, but I guess I could see why. You know what I mean? And
nobody pays attention, because if everything's going generally okay, people don't get engaged.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're like, everything's going good.
Well, to your point, nobody generally wants to show up and give you an attaboy.
No,
they just want to come and be upset when things are not going
So
well.
either A, that means we're catching the problems and solving them better and more consistently, and people are less upset, or I can't imagine that people just don't want to get involved and don't care, because it's your community. You would think that you'd want to get involved.
Yeah, I think locally it comes more of like most of the issues that are political. Like, let's face it, up until like really 10, 12 years ago, politics were kind of a backseat in culture.
Yeah.
And then they kind of, over the last 10 years, everything's been politicized on a national level to a sense of.
But I think local politics are still.
Well, local,
nobody wants
city,
to touch national. They just want to say, what are you going to do for me locally? Because that's.
But there's less going on locally, right? So like nationally, you can get activated and frustrated by the abortion topic or the
that doesn't happen locally.
troops. But locally here in
Medina, your road has a pothole. That's
right? Yeah, exactly. Locally here in Medina, like what's going to affect me personally? Like, okay, maybe if I hit 3 deer this week, that's a hot topic for me. But David, who hasn't hit a deer in his whole life, could care less.
Yeah, and I brought some stuff just because you guys want to talk about like growing up, and you said about I grew up on a farm and all that. But I also brought my rings because you guys wanted to know.
Whoa!
Like this is the national championship ring that we got when we were down there, and then I have the
so cool
SEC championship, and this is what they give you when you letter. This is the SEC one when you win the SEC, and this is when. But I figured you guys, I can't wear these things, but they're just too big. And then this one, like for a 4-year letterman at Tennessee, they give you that one.
If you win the race, you need a picture with all of them.
Like they do the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl thing.
On your way to Disneyland.
But I mean, those are great things. I mean, I was lucky enough to be part of a great team.
That's awesome. You could do a cool photo shoot though, where it's like #winning, and it just has your knuckle full of rings.
Well, all that shows is that I'm a competitor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a
well, I mean, it's not. It's more than that,
I made one of those posters, black one. You put rings on it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go. It shows more than that too, though. I mean, when you're part of a team, especially a winning team, it shows discipline, work ethic. There's so much more to, especially championship level.
Well, that came from growing up on a farm.
I mean, absolutely, because not most kids know what a 4 a.m. morning start looks like.
Well, you don't know working all day, baling hay all day and getting $2 an hour.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you get $60.
Welcome to the night zone, hear the warriors speak. Life's the battlefield and we ain't feeling weak. From love to the game and the power we seek. Our voice is strong, breaking every peak. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Talk of love and battle scars, everything that's real. From touchdown to sermon, you know the deal. Strength in every word we begin to reveal. Truth in every tale as our lives we unveil. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast, let's ride the wave. Politics and prayers ain't no subject we shun. Keep it real, keep it raw till the battle's won. Fitness, just a faith, every topic under the sun. with honor and valor, every man's battle begun. Warriors with word swords through the air, every point sharp and every talk fair. Knights at the round table, come and pull up a chair. Join the brotherhood, words laid bare. Protect and provide, we're knights in the fray. Nothing off limits, we got something to say. Life and love, fitness and fight all day. Guys Night Podcast.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Guys Night Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Phil McEwen. With me, as always, my co-pilot, David. What's going on, David? How you doing?
I'm doing so good.
Awesome. And tonight we've got a special guest, pole vaulting his way from the farm to national champion. And then obviously getting into local politics with our city council for over 27 years in the local area, now running for mayor. So congratulations and
thanks.
welcome aboard.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be here to share, whatever we need to talk about.
Yeah, and folks that are listening, this is live. You're welcome to comment with your questions. We'll try to get them answered throughout the show, but at the end, we'll absolutely sit down and make sure that we go through as many as possible. We appreciate you guys joining us. Let's start off literally on top in the sense of pole vaulting of all things. That has got to be one of the scariest sports as a high school student looking at track. Like the idea of being 16, 17 feet up in the air, right on the edge of a mat with a pole, the only thing that's keeping you up. How did you start pole vaulting?
That's a good and interesting question. I remember when I was little, my grandfather had in his garage, there was an aluminum pole on the wall, and I always used to ask my dad, what is that? What is that thing on the wall? What can I use that? And he says, no. I was like 6 years old. He goes, no, don't worry about it. Because my dad pole vaulted and my uncle pole vaulted in high school. So I said, finally, they brought it out and we took it out to the farm and I dug a little hole in the ground and I started jumping. And next thing I know, I was jumping over the clothesline. And then I got a bunch of hay bales and put them out. And I started jumping over them and I made my own standards, as they call them, to put the bar across. And I had a piece of electrical conduit pipe. And I made my own little thing about 10 foot high, and I just started doing it, and one thing led to another.
That's incredible.
That was at how old?
I was in sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
Yes,
Okay.
started
So
it.
like 11, 12 years old.
Yes. And then seventh grade, it was the first organized, pole vaulting in high school, or junior high, I guess it would be at that time.
Not
And-
middle school.
No.
Well, junior high school.
We called it junior high. So 7th and 8th grade in junior high. So, started there. And then, I jumped, I think my first year, it was like 8 feet, and then 9.6 the second year. And then from there in high school, as soon as I started bending the pole, everything changed.
Man, that's incredible.
How so? Was this something that you just naturally picked up? Like, how did you compare to your friends and the others, like at that age? Because obviously, you're a
Yes.
champion, but were you a natural, or is this something that?
I guess growing up, everybody said, well, you're athletic. And I don't know what that means. What does that mean? But I always liked gymnastics. I always liked to do things. Growing up on a farm, I would always do those crazy things, climbing trees, throwing hay bales around, doing all that. And I've always enjoyed doing that. So I guess just naturally, when I started doing it, I was good at it. So I just, kept doing it.
Well, it's not like you just kept doing it. You kind of owned it.
Yeah.
Like,
It was-
first of all, Buckeye's not the biggest school, especially at the time that you attended. It's grown since then.
Yes.
But at that point in time, because I graduated in 2000. I remember the football team on Buckeye played both ways because there was only like 27 students. So I can't imagine the track team was that big back then.
True.
Going to Tennessee, though, that had to be a huge change in your lifestyle in the sense of like small town community, growing up on a farm to going to an SEC contender in track. Like, what was that?
That was interesting because I did do a bunch of college visits, after pole vaulting and doing well. And it's kind of odd when you're involved in sports, and I was jumping and I was winning all the meets, which was great, but I didn't really understand how much better I was. Right? I'm doing okay, I'm doing good. So then I started going to these visits to the colleges, and I kind of enjoyed that. And I went to Tennessee because there was if you go to the different colleges, every track program's different, and Tennessee had like 4 track coaches, and most schools only had 2. And then they were going to hire a specific high jump pole vault coach. So that would be a coach full time,
Dedicated to
you.
Wow.
And so we did that, and he went to Mansfield. He went to Miami University, and he was also a pole vaulter. Jim B. Miller, his name was, and so we both went down there together to start the program. So, I went down, he went down, and a couple other people joined us. So we really started the program at Tennessee for pole vaulting because they had a great track team, right? They won the SEC like 20 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
So I said, this is great. I'm going to go to a winning team. And the first year, they lost.
They taught you resilience right off the bat.
That's right. But it was a great program. The coach was great. They took, care of you as far as, if you got injured, there was tutoring programs for, academics. They really pushed the academics. They tried to bring everything holistically together, and it was a great program, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I learned a lot down there, learned a lot about traveling, learned a lot about competition, learned a lot about, how to be a tough competitor because you're in a different league once you get in the NCAA Division I. So,
well, I'd assume it's just like any other sports at that high a level. I mean, you're competing not only with these other teams, but before that, you probably had to compete with quite a few kids just to even be able to compete in the meets or in the right? Because, they can have X amount of scholarships versus like somebody going to Akron where you might compete with 3 other pole vaulters. You might have had 20 just in your class.
Well, I joke now because if I had to go to Tennessee now, I probably wouldn't even make the team. Because Tim Mack went there. He was at Malone and went there. He won a gold medal in Greece in 2004 in pole vault. And then Lawrence Johnson, before that in the 90s, he was from Virginia. He took a silver medal in the Olympics in pole vault. So I always joke, it's like, how could I make the team with have 2 Olympians
on the same team?
Yes.
That's awesome.
We're gonna dive head first into politics, but had politics entered your mind back then?
Not really. To give you kind of a history of why I was interested in politics as a public servant, my grandfather, he was the mayor of the city of Brooklyn and Cuyahoga County for 52 years.
Wow.
So growing up, he was always, I've been around that. We'd go visit him because I grew up on the farm. We'd go in the city and, we'd see what he's doing. And we'd go to City Hall and he would tell things and what he's doing. And we'd go to his events and you'd learn more about, what is this? What is this politics? What does this mean? But local politics is so much different than national politics, and I've learned that he is able to, have an impact on individuals, more of an impact directly. And I've learned that from him. And I said, well, this is great. I mean, you can actually do something if you're able to help people out. And that's kind of what got me started in politics and learning about that. And when I was appointed to a council in 1998, in 1999 I had a run. And when I won, my grandfather lost.
Oh, wow.
But the good thing was he came down to to swear me in, and it was very, it was like handing over the torch, so to speak.
That's pretty cool.
So I enjoyed that, and I say, I hope I can do a quarter of what he's done for his community because I would do a great job because he did things like cutting the grass for seniors, snow plowing their driveways, taking their trash from their garage out. He understood that it's the people that you have to be concerned about because they're the ones that need the help. So and especially the older people because they get to a point where they can't do it themselves.
Well, we've talked about this before, and one, it's awesome, like on a local level where the things that are politicized nationally aren't as at the forefront of our local politics, right? At least in most cases. But you mentioned, the older people, the communities. Excuse me. One of the things that we've learned over the years in traveling to Europe and different countries, especially Greece, and Italy, is that the communities do a much better job of taking care of the senior citizens there and the locals. It's because when you get there, you realize, especially in Greece, there is 0 handicap. If you have to take a what am I looking at? Wheelchair. If you have to do a wheelchair or anything, you're stuck because there's stairs everywhere and everything is uphill, right? So we noticed how difficult it would be to get around if you were overweight or if you were unable to and you were stuck in a chair. And that's like, no, your neighbor helps out, or your family helps take care of you. Like when you get to a certain point in life, the community around you helps out. And that's something that's not necessarily done well in our country, but I know, and we'll get into some of the visions, but some of the things that you've talked about doing as mayor are things that are kind of reinforcing that let's take care of our local community and our elders and the people that are less fortunate.
Wasn't that scary? Because think about the baby boomers, they say are retiring at an accelerated rate. So more of the population is getting older and getting into that age group where they're going to need that help.
Right.
And, they're going to need all those things that help them out, including healthcare, mobility, nursing homes, all that stuff that's coming. And it's going to be ramped up because more people are getting older.
Yeah,
all at
and
the same time.
the other aspect of it too is it's such a financially beneficial business model in most of those cases. So you do start to see. I mean, we just had one go up the street not too far from here, a huge senior living center.
Yes.
And it's great to have those areas because hopefully that allows these folks to enjoy the rest of the the end of the life a little bit differently than if they were just stuck in an apartment and not able to leave anywhere.
I mean, they worked their whole life. They paid their dues. What do you do for them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we get too far into politics, you mentioned a couple times growing up on a farm.
Yes.
So when it comes to any career, I don't think there's a better base that you can have than working on a farm, right?
True.
4 a.m. mornings.
Yes.
Right after school, you're grinding till 11, 12 o'clock at night.
All weekend.
Back up to do it again. Yeah. I mean, Friday night football is like good, have a good event, but get your butt back here in the morning. What was that like?
Yeah. What were you guys farming too?
Well, I grew up on a farm, and my dad had beef cattle mainly, but I had raised chickens when I was little. I had a lot of chickens, like 300 of them. I remember.
Wow.
This is a unique story. I remember Farmers Exchange when they used to sell feed. I remember my grandfather came out and said, "Oh, let's get some chickens." I go, "Oh, that's great. I like some chickens." So you go up and you buy a 50-pound bag of feed, and you get 50 chicks for free. So of course we bought 300 pounds. So I had 300 chickens. So
It was a good start to
it was a good
chick-
start.
yeah.
So we had all these chickens, and we had pigs, goats, sheep, chickens, geese, ducks. And right now my dad still has the farm and has beef cattle.
Okay.
So he still raises beef cattle, and that was great growing up because you had to get up every morning to feed those animals. You couldn't say, "I'm not feeding those animals." So it created a sense of, you had, if you wanted them, you had to take care of them. And growing up, even in the winter when it was freezing cold, you had to get out there, thaw their water out because it would freeze, right? Because they didn't have these heater things that they have nowadays and all that. It was just back in the 70s and 80s, there was not much there. So you had to get up and you had to do all that work for those animals. And it was a great job, and it was a lot of work. And that's probably why I said I'm going to college.
I mean, you're right, though. Especially, it's funny. My neighbor, his son's in the 4-H program, and he had pigs probably starting, I think, 3 years ago when he was probably like 11, 12. And I'd see him every morning, like walking down to the edge of the drive, the farm that you first entered the development, And then the next year, he was taking like a dirt bike up there, I think. And then he started his landscaping company, and him and his brother are doing that. And it's like, this kid works nonstop, and he's not even in high school yet. Like he is going to have a work ethic that started by having to take care of an animal.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
You have to do it, and the good thing is even my kids, they got involved in 4-H, and I had them in 4-H. We had rabbits in the city, because you could have them in my garage. So we'd have to clean the pens every week, so they wouldn't. So they, they enjoyed it, and so they went through all high school through 4-H. Went to the fair every year, took animals, and they each took a cow from my dad's farm, and so they had to go over there all the time and walk it and train it and feed it, and so it was a great thing for them to learn too, and they enjoyed it. I think that's the best thing for kids. They have to get involved in something like that because you understand responsibility, and you understand what you have to do to raise an animal, and you're responsible for something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
We've talked a little bit about how you got started in the community, but your pole vaulting didn't end at the collegiate level. You do quite a bit of work for the local high school teams, or you have in the past as a volunteer, right?
I try to help out. I know when I can. I remember back in the early 2000s at Buckeye, I received a call because they started girls pole vaulting at that time, and they said, "Oh, can you come and help?" And I said, "Sure, I'll help out." And so I went out and I try to teach them what I've learned to try to help them out. And I had some good success with that. I think I saw one guy, Schnur, and Van Epp was the woman, and I coached them, and they both went. I think one went to state, and I think the other one went to state or almost went to state.
Wow.
So it was just, you just have to create confidence, because everything you do is all about your self-awareness and self-confidence in your own ability, because people don't trust themselves enough to do things, and if you take that step, you'll be amazed what you could do.
I mean, you definitely have to have some trust in something to get on with those sticks. Like, not for me. I did high jump, and I thought that was intense. Like,
It's all fun.
it is. It's a blast. I miss high school a lot. It's funny. Like, now my daughter's going through it. It's like, man, there's some good times. Friday night, I drove by the Taco Bell, and then after homecoming, there's like 50 kids out there. They're just having the time of their life, just smashing some gorditas, talking about the homecoming game. All right, so I haven't got any questions. Those that are listening live, appreciate you guys joining in. Obviously, we've got mayor candidate John Coyne III joining us. So the original John Coyne was the mayor of Brooklyn then?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And you guys are free to chop in with any questions you got. Just comment below. We'll try to bring them up throughout the show or after the fact. But I guess the next thing is I know you said that your grandfather kind of gave you the idea of,
Yes.
of political
Yes.
Ambition, but what were you doing before that? Because it wasn't until you were almost 30 before you joined. So
Right.
there's some
I
time-
graduated from college and law. Well, that's another story. I went to high school, graduated from high school, went to the University of Tennessee, competed 4 years, received a degree in finance at the University of Tennessee. I said, well, what do I want to do with my life? Because every time you're in college, everybody wants to say, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I think I want to do some business, but I want to be able to think like a lawyer. I didn't actually want to be a lawyer at that time. I wanted to think like one.
Okay.
So I said, I'll come back up to Ohio and I'll go to law school. So I did that, went to law school, and I was not planning on being a lawyer. I wanted to be like an investment banker or running a business or something like that where you can approach problems differently. Because I've always, even on a farm, I've always liked solving problems. I think that kind of led me both into politics and in the legal field because I like solving problems. So I went there and I said, well, maybe I should get an MBA too. So because you can get an MBA in a half a year if you're in law school rather than doing a 2-year program, because I did 3.5 total years. So law school was 3 and using MBA's 2. So the MBA ended up being 1 and law school was 2.5.
Oh, wow.
So I said, I'll do both of them because
Yeah.
it's only half a year longer. So I did that and, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed solving problems. I joined the law firm of Retzel and Andrus as a summer clerk, and I got involved right away in real estate, transactional work. And I really enjoyed that because it was, I knew I never really wanted to get involved in litigation because it's so much different than a transactional work. Transactional work is more, you do a deal, you do an agreement, you try to accomplish a goal for a person, buying a new business or buying property. So I enjoyed doing that, the deals. It was very, people say it's boring, but I enjoy it. And so I got involved in that and I said, I enjoy this. So the next thing you know, 30 years later, I'm still at the same firm. I have only been at one firm my whole career.
Wow.
And
that is something I did not know about
Yes.
you. One job for 30 years.
Yes.
That's incredible because that's something that just doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, I mean, people jump around and stuff, but when I go into something, I go into it and I want to do the best I can at it, and I continue doing it. And if you got to be treated well with your law firm, and of course, you wouldn't leave. So I, felt been treated fairly and kept the same job for 30 years.
That's pretty cool. Anything that sticks out to you over that 30-year career? That's just like memorable, like either whether it's helping a business or starting a business or just a real estate purchase of your own, or
Yeah, the one thing I remember back probably in about 2004, there was a larger client in Akron who hired me to buy or sell an apartment building. No, it was to buy an apartment building in Chapel Hill. It was called Chapel Hill Towers apartment building, and buying it from Forest City. And I remember doing the deal, and at the end of the deal, there was the apartment building, and there was this vacant lot next door that the client wanted to build self-storage units on. And so when we were all finished with the deal and, we entered in and closed it, signed all the easements that had to be done, he came to me and said, oh, we forgot to do one thing. And I go, what's that? What did we forget? He goes, well, I bought that land next door and I wanted that sign out front to advertise my self-storage facilities I'm going to build. And I told him, I said, I put it in there for you. He goes, what? I said, well, I was thinking if I was you, I'd want a sign out front. So I wrote it into the agreement. And then he was like, from then on, he was like, well, you got my business. Because,
that is awesome.
Because I thought ahead and I said, solve the problem. Because, you got to think if I was buying it, what would I do? I'd want a sign out front. So I put that in the agreement. And he was tickled pink that I thought about that. I'm not even asking them. I just did it.
So do you work mostly on the commercial aspect now?
Yes, I do a lot of commercial deals, mostly multifamily around the country. I do some residential things that if people need help, I help out on that. But mostly commercial multifamily from purchasing, acquisition, disposition, and financing of that.
Okay, so you kind of see all aspects of the actual acquisition.
Yes.
Anything locally?
Yeah, there's some stuff locally. I represent a few. Like he's local. He does some stuff locally, but a lot of the bigger deals are not that local. I mean, people in Cleveland have their own lawyers, but it's very odd in the real estate industry, especially real estate lawyers. People don't jump around with different lawyers. Once you have a lawyer, you usually stick with that attorney. And I've learned a lot by doing that. But there are some projects that I do in Toledo, Canton. There's some local projects, housing projects that I get involved in locally like that. But a lot of them are in Colorado, North Carolina, Florida. There's all over the place.
Are you starting to see, and I'm sure you get involved even on the seller's aspect, are you starting to see more and more out-of-state investment into local real estate than in the past with Ohio?
There are some. It depends on the deal. It depends on the size of the deal. There's still a lot of activity of people wanting to, like local developers, just trying to manage their portfolio, because it's better if you're local and you manage the projects because you're more hands-on. Because as you hear the horror stories, people, I got an outside, other state landlord. They don't do their work. They don't do anything. There's where the problems arise, but you have to be involved in the project in order to make it successful. So I see a lot more local involvement to have a successful project, because you can have projects, but they're not going to be successful.
Makes sense. David, you're in real estate. You got any questions to add on that?
No,
that
yeah.
portion?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I've got several portfolio management type clients that they're not here, but they rely on me. I'm a licensed realtor here in Ohio, and yeah, it's very clear. There's some, it seems like they're just looking for write-offs. Like they'll come in and they'll have a couple hundred properties for 3-4 years, and then either 1031 them off to someone else or something else. It just seems like, some have money to park for a little while and then move on.
Yep.
So I try and actually avoid them, because it may sound like real thrilling, like, oh, I could sell a couple hundred houses, but you can also have a couple hundred headaches pretty immediately with some of them. And then I got to call John for help.
Yeah, always. There's always headaches. That's the goal, is to try to eliminate those headaches before they happen. That's always the goal.
Yeah.
Now you own some real estate as well, correct?
Yes.
So you manage your own properties.
Yes. Yeah, I have a couple properties in the city of Medina, about 80 units. 2 apartment complexes, and one in Wadsworth that's 20 units, so about 100 units, and then another kind of a retail bank building and a couple industrial properties. But I manage them, and the thing I like about that, and it just seems kind of weird, is that I practice law all day, and then when I manage the apartments and I do some of the maintenance on them, that's relaxing to me. And I guess it goes back to the farm thing. I'm using my hands. I'm solving problems, fixing things, hot water tanks, or redoing a unit, or changing the lights out, doing all that stuff, which is very handy for my son too, because he, I get him involved. That now he knows how to do all that.
Sure.
Which nowadays kids don't know how to change a tire, but he can go in and change a hot water tank. So that's very
I
helpful.
can completely identify with that. So I have a handful of rentals that are around University of Akron, and it's the same thing. Like the water heater, I just replaced a water heater at one of them 3 months ago, and it's like taking a vacation for me. Like don't have to answer the phone. Well, I do have to.
It's
answer
relaxing.
The phone, but it is. It's therapeutic.
Yes, it is.
For sure.
So we have competitions, my son and I, because we go change one out. We say, okay, how long is it going to take us? And usually it takes us about 1 hour and 15 minutes, because there's always a problem that you have to solve when you're changing one out.
How old is your son?
He's 20. He'll be 21 in December. So he's a junior at Ohio State currently. So, but he's always been involved ever since he was 5 years old. He's been driving tractors. So he's
Always got his hands in the.
Always
got him
has,
working on
yes,
doing
yes,
something.
yes.
Anybody else? Any of the other kids in politics or interested in politics?
Unfortunately, no. Nobody wants to be a lawyer either, so I don't know. There's always those jokes, right? The worst people are politicians. Oh, I'm that. Lawyers. Oh, I'm that. And then the last one's a dentist. Lucky I'm not a dentist, but those are the 3 people that they always joke about. You shouldn't get in those professions. But no, they're my one daughter, Jacqueline. She's the oldest. She recently was married, and now she's off on her kind of own learning. And I talked into buying a duplex as their first property. I said, now think ahead, because you buy a house, it's all expenses. If you buy a duplex, at least when you get enough money, you could buy a house and you have a rental. So, they're learning about that process.
Sure.
My next daughter, Jessica, she recently engaged, and she's going to get married in 2027. She works at the Cleveland Clinic downtown as a cytologist.
A cytologist?
Correct. She looks at in a microscope looking at cells for cancer.
Oh, wow.
So she does that, and she's been doing that. She's been doing great at that. My other older daughter, she's a marketing person at Simple 3. It's called. It used to be Step 2, and the guy sold Step 2 and started another company in Streetsboro. So she works in the marketing department there. Working with Walmart, doing the internet stuff. She enjoys that. And my son, of course, he's the last one. He'll be 21, and he is in computer science at Ohio State, and he likes the agriculture. So he wants to try to bring, computers and computer technology into farming. So he likes to bring those through because he was at my dad's farm and my dad let him, do what he wanted, and he tried to make the tractors autonomous. Right? He's putting self-steering wheels on the tractors
What?
with GPA. Yeah, he's doing all that stuff.
I mean, that is a thing now.
He
Yeah.
enjoys it. Yes, he enjoys it. So those are very great things. They're very interesting, very great. Let them do it. Learn. You got to learn from everything you do. So those are, my 3 children do all that. And my wife, she's at home now. She's a CPA. She graduated with an accounting degree and was a CPA, worked at the state auditor's office for many years. And I remember when I was going through law school, going down to, I don't know if you guys remember this, the nightly drawing they used to do, and then you had the cash explosion show. You remember
Yeah,
that?
oh, yeah.
So I would go to that because she would audit that. Her job was
really?
to make sure they didn't cheat, right? So she would be there to watch them. Yeah, so those are very interesting things.
Well, it's awesome to hear that your kids are having some success early and that they've, obviously done a good job raising them. So that's fantastic.
Maybe that's
Congrats
my
to you.
wife. I don't know if you can if you ask her. That wasn't me. It was all my wife. So I give her all the credit on that.
Obviously you're talking about your son using science and the future of farming, but right now AI is a big thing.
Yes.
In fact, AI told me that you've closed over $1 billion in real estate deals.
I have.
So that is incredible.
Yes, I have. That just tells you how long I've been doing it.
Yeah. And how much real estate property values have gone
Yes,
up over the
yes.
last 10 years, right?
Yes.
Is there anything that, before we get into your politics, to kind of like transition, is there anything that you've learned on either the retail aspect with your own properties being some local and stuff, but also on a national level? Like a oops moment where you didn't take the consideration of the community involved, or you learned something about serving the community through real estate bundles or
Well, you always
bundles?
learn, and as a landlord, you learn responsiveness, right? And I've always, as a lawyer, you learn responsiveness because if you get a call from a tenant or something and there's a problem, you can't say, I'll get it 2 weeks from now.
Right.
You have to do it now. So that's kind of what I've learned through both being a lawyer, because you have to answer the phone or you're not going to have a client. You have to call the client back or they're going to leave. Same thing with a tenant. If you start ignoring the tenants, they'll just go rent somewhere else.
Sure.
So you have to be involved and you have to try to solve the problems as quick as you can. So that's what I've learned through that. And that's kind of goes into politics. You can't ignore a constituent. You have to get back to them and you have to solve the problem quickly.
Sure. On the real estate end of things, with rent prices kind of climbing through the last couple of years, do you find yourself feeling more responsible for maybe the value of that rent for a client? Meaning, are you remodeling apartments? Are you trying to keep up with, new technology, things like that?
Absolutely. We remodel the apartments, but I try to keep the rent affordable as possible. I'm a little lower than the competitors because there's some older people that live in some of my apartments, and I'm not going to raise their rent $100 a month or something like that. I'll be fair with them, and usually that's what you try to do because long-term renters are what you would like, right? Because then it's you have a history with them. You know what they're going to do. You're not doing much turnover, and so to do that, you have to. It's not all about making all the money. It's about how do I continue to make money, but how do I be fair to the tenant? So I kind of look at that too. And that's always a struggle in your mind because you're in it to make money, but you're also affecting people's lives, right? So, because that's where they live. So you have to try to balance that all the time and try to be fair with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Got anything else to add, David?
No.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Okay.
All right. So we've talked about your real estate career. We've talked about your college championships and, but now you're running for the mayor of Medina, which has had the same mayor really in place for 16 years.
Correct.
He's now retiring. It's an opportunity for you and Jim Shields to kind of compete for that position.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Well, hold on. There's a third candidate now. Have you heard about this?
Oh,
Let me send you this video here. There's a third candidate. You might be hearing about this for the first time.
Hold on a
John,
second. Let me see if I can share this with our guest.
Yeah, there's.
Let's see. Share screen.
Yeah, we'll break this live here.
All right. Let's see.
This is important.
After 26 whimsical seconds of children running hand in hand with Ronald McDonald through a forest of trees filled with eyes and apple pies, one 1970 commercial for McDonald's colorful McDonaldland gives a nod to the head honcho, Mayor McCheese. Though not as famous as his pal Ronald, Mayor McCheese and the other denizens of McDonaldland starred alongside him in commercials through the first half of the 70s. Mayor McCheese's character is exemplified in a 1971 McDonald's commercial about him running for re-election. In his bumbling speech, he consistently requires Ronald McDonald to correct him. Ronald has to recommend the word trustworthy instead of Mayor McCheese's strange use of self-winding to describe cheeseburgers. Ronald
Now,
also shoots down his idea
unfortunate-
for a cheeseburger in every glove compartment.
So my one important question is: are you gonna bring cheeseburgers to every compartment, glove compartment?
Well, that is interesting. Maybe I was too young to remember that, but I do remember the 70s, but I don't remember Mayor McCheese. So
David said that to me today. I was like, yeah, we can play that because I don't remember Mayor McCheese either. But
What?
there's all kinds of parodies to him, like not parodies, but it's funny because the whole story is McDonald's actually got sued for using him.
There's
He was from
an
another
intellectual
event.
property problem with
Oh,
Mayor
okay.
McCheese. That's why he's gone.
But since then, he's been on like 12 different shows
wow.
where, in regards to being Mayor McCheese from McDonald's,
Wow.
like, and it's funny how that doesn't intellectual property's out. at
yeah,
this
well,
point.
yeah, that's funny. I mean, everybody tries to do the parody because I remember, didn't there's a mayor on that Nightmare to Christmas or something? There's another
Main character.
Yeah. There's all these mayors that are around and all the kids programs and like the old animated Christmas shows that they have Meisterburger, whatever that guy's name was, and they're all mayors of these little communities. That's it's funny. They're always integrated into it, and they're always made out to be the villain. Sometimes I don't understand that.
Yeah, right. Why is the mayor always the bad guy?
That's what I don't
Right.
understand.
Well, maybe that is actually my next question. So we talked about your history and things like that. A lot of the responsibility of the mayor falls into budget.
Yes.
So I would imagine running your own organization, your own business as far as real estate and stuff like that has got to be a huge asset to you and being an attorney and knowing what's wrong and right.
Yes. No, I think back in 2004, as I mentioned in some of my speeches, I thought about the budget because we're always worried about the budget. We went through a crisis where we had an income tax of 0.5% in the city of Medina. So we were running out of money, and the current mayor at the time said we can't salt the roads. And I always tried, I don't understand why we can't. Because you have to really understand the budgeting process in order to understand that. So I said, why don't we change the way we do things in Medina? Let's do a 5-year budget. Let's look ahead in the future because we're only looking ahead 1 year at a time.
When was this?
2004, about
Okay.
2004. And I said, let's look at that and let's change the way government handles money because government used to handle money and most governments still handle money. They say, I'm going to give you $1 million to run your department. And you go, oh, that's great. I'm going to have $1 million. And then what they do at the end of the year, oh, you only spent $900,000. Well, we're going to take the money back from you. We're going to give you less next year. So what does that make you do? Say, well, I'm going to spend more then.
Right.
So I kind of said, why don't we change that and say, if you save that $100,000, why don't we let you keep that? We're not going to take it back from you. And then you could use a project in the future. If you might want a different vehicle, or you might want to do a playground set, or you might want to build another building in your department to help your department out. You save the money, you could do that. You don't have to come back to council to get the money. So we did that, and last year, over that period of 21 years, we carry forward, as what it's called, $13.5 million.
So I don't know if you have something to add to that, but explain to me how that works. So you're saying city council sets the mayor sets the budget, right?
Yeah, and then city council approves the appropriation for him to spend, right?
So let's use simple numbers like the mayor approves a budget of $1 million.
Correct.
And I've got 10 organizations I'm going to give each $100,000
Correct.
to. If one of those organizations only uses $50,000 before, you just took the $50,000 back.
Well, the fear would be that we would, right? Because we'd have a budget the next year, so we'd have to look at it and say, okay, we need more money over here. So
Company A would just go out and spend that frugal, like just on whatever, because they didn't want to
Use it
risk
or
not
lose
getting.
it.
Yeah, right.
Use it or lose it concept.
So you had the idea and brought it to. Would an idea like that have to be taken to the mayor first, or
we had a meeting, several meetings with all the department heads, with the mayor at the time, and we'd sat down and said, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we want to do. And, there were some naysayers. Some people say, let's try it. So we finally tried it, right?
Wait, real quick, why would somebody naysay something like that?
Well, because it's like, well, that won't work. I mean, why would that work? Because it never happened before, right?
Gotcha.
So when something doesn't happen before, the natural reaction is to say,
Change is bad.
that won't work.
Right.
So
Fair enough.
So we tried it. It worked the first year. The first couple of years, it was like $3 million we saved.
Wow. So when you say you saved,
We didn't spend.
so like $3 million was let's back to that original million, 10 people.
Yes.
So between them all, you saved $3 million of rollover money.
Yes.
And
yes.
that goes now. Where does that rollover go? Back to those departments
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that budget was set. They got that $3 million. Now taxpayers might say, well, why didn't that come back to us if it was, appropriated by us? But ultimately it's went to something for us.
Well,
at
they're
some point.
still saving it, right? Because remember, the unfortunate thing in life is expenses always go up, but revenues don't follow expenses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you save the money. And if things get more expensive, you'll be able to afford them without raising taxes. So the goal is, how do we continue things forward without raising taxes? Because nobody wants to pay more taxes, right? I mean, I don't want to pay more taxes. You don't want to pay more taxes. So you have to have a plan of how can we stretch that money out further so we don't have to go back to the taxpayer.
Gotcha. So there comes the rollover plan. And the idea
Yes,
is that
yes.
if, as you said, when it's year to year, if there's a deficiency in income tax, the money's there from the year before that didn't get
Yes.
used to help with that.
See,
and moving
because
forward.
right now we're lucky enough to save enough money overall through the city. We have about $92 million that saved up through all the various accounts through everything in the city. And our budget annually is about 42 to 45 million. So if everybody quit paying money today, we could survive at least for 2 years,
Wow. Okay.
which
Now-
is great because most people can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say there's other cities, we won't blast them, but I mean, you can see and feel it when you drive into them that
There's
like,
a
okay,
deficit.
they're running on credit cards around here and not able to fill potholes. Like, yeah.
But the other end of that too is you can't spend it all either, right? Because you say, oh, spend all the money and fix all these things now. Well, that would be bad too, because you'd spend it all and then something else may pop up and you can't
Right.
afford it.
You have
So there's a
emergency.
process you have to go through to make sure that you are, being fiscally responsible with the money to make sure that it can last longer. The goal is not to spend it all and the goal is not to save it all. The goal is to allocate it properly throughout the years.
So one of the things that I think is given politics kind of a bad name, nationally, locally, all in the above, is that transparency, right? So you're
Yes.
talking to us, we've now saved, you said, over $90 million.
Mhm.
So we've got over $90 million in the bank.
mhm.
How do, as a local Medina, how do I know that that's being spent well? Is there somewhere where I'm able to go and see what we spend our dollars on?
We do have a website, and that's one of the things I would like to do as mayor, if you could jump into that.
Awesome.
Because AI is coming out, right? AI would be very helpful for this, right? Because it'll be able to take those numbers, be able to give you the information. Because right now, you have to gather that. You call the finance department and say, can you give me the numbers? And they can give you a number, but they can't really tell you how it's all being spent. And is it being spent wisely? You're never going to eliminate all
Never
spending.
be, everybody's never going to be happy on how you spend your
Yes,
dollars.
yes,
I
yes.
agree.
You're never going to be able to do that.
But I think when you have transparency, even if I'm not happy, at least I know what it's going to. Like,
Absolutely.
oh, you know what? Maybe I think we have enough funding for the police department, but they spent $5 million on X to upfit
Right.
them with better safety equipment or whatever, or maybe more officers for the schools or something like that. At least I can see that.
Yes.
I think that transparency going forward is just one of those things, because obviously talking about taxes, I mean, Medina, we just saw
Yes.
a huge property tax increase.
Yes.
In fact, I've got some questions here real quick. With the massive increase in local taxes, how does the administration work with city council to help, ease the financial burden of local population? And is that something that falls under your responsibility as mayor?
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you're going to remember, we're talking about real estate taxes.
Yeah.
The city receives about 5% of that. So the most of it goes to the schools and the county.
Okay.
So the city's not really living off of the property taxes that increased. Sure, we get a little bit of it. We mainly live off of the income tax.
Okay.
Because townships don't have income tax. So the city does, but townships do not. So we understand that's going to definitely affect the residents of the city of Medina. So like one of my things that I was talking about is, what is government here to do? What is government here to do for its residents? And one of the things that we could try to help relieve some of that burden on the residents is a sidewalk program I talked about. Because right now we make the resident pay for their own sidewalk repair. I don't think that's a good idea, because I view government as, if you're government, what are you supposed to do for the people, and what is used by all the people? That's what government's there for. Government's not, there for anything but to do those things collectively that it'd be difficult to do individually. Like you can't go run your own water line to Lake Erie to get your own water.
Right.
Well, you need a government to help you do that. You can't pave your own road in front of your house. You need a government there to help you do that. And I think sidewalks is the same thing. A sidewalk is nothing more than pedestrians walking on a sidewalk, just like cars drive on the streets.
Sure.
So I think that the government should be involved in that and help pay for that. I don't think it'll be that expensive overall to take over the maintenance and cost obligation to make sure those sidewalks are safe and accessible for everybody. So that's one thing that we could take back to say, hey, resident, you don't have to come out of your pocket to pay for that. we'll plan for that. We'll be wise with the money on that, and we'll solve that problem for you. That way, I hate to say this, you could use that money to pay your taxes, your real estate taxes, because that's where it's going to go, right? So, you have to try to, how do you help them out solve that problem? and unfortunately, we can't have any control over the real estate taxes.
So that's a great point, because I mean, we had the conversation before. That's obviously a county-based thing, right?
Yes.
You mentioned only 5% of that really goes to the cities.
Yes.
Where does the majority of that go, and then who's responsible? Because I mean, I'm sure you've seen the news. Cloverleaf is trying to do something
Yes.
for the locals. And
Schools take most of that. Usually, the school makes up a majority of the property tax allocation because of the levies that they pass. So the schools take a bigger chunk of that. And I can't remember exactly how much of it is they take. It could be 70, 80% of it, goes to pay for education.
Sure.
Because that's the funding system that we have.
It's fun. It's interesting, because I think my frustration with it was, as I could see the future saying that your property taxes are going to go up, right? 3 years ago when property, I mean, eventually the government's going to be like, we want some of that action. But of course, the school raced to get that levy in there 6 months prior. And then you're like, oh, we need to help the schools. And then you're like, oh, I'm really helping the schools now.
Right.
But let's bring that back to what the mayor's responsibility is. So when people think of the mayor, I think they think of school systems. I think they think of businesses. I think they think of rules or laws that are being passed, or law enforcement, things like that. What ultimately falls under your responsibility if you're elected mayor?
What I would be responsible for is council passes the appropriations to spend the money that the mayor then would spend.
Okay.
So I would be responsible to make sure the money that is allocated to a specific department is spent wisely.
Gotcha.
And that would be the mayor's job. The mayor's job is also, if there's a law passed by council, the mayor's job is to, enforce that law, to make sure that the laws are being followed. That's the executive administrative branch of that. Council doesn't make sure that the laws are followed. It's the mayor's job to make sure that happens. It's the mayor's job to make sure that the streets are repaired. It's council's job to make sure there's money there to repair the streets. But it's just the other part of it. It's more of the administrative functioning of the city to make sure things are getting done.
Do you have an example, like just let's say within the last year, of anything that was approved legally that is being enforced now, just of like what you just outlined?
I mean, there are, in the last year, let me think about, the only thing that we have is that we passed the deer program.
The deer thing, I was gonna say, is one, yeah.
That'd be one of them where it was passed by council, but we can't enforce it. We can't make it happen. The mayor makes it happen, and the mayor decides how it happens.
Gotcha.
Council just passed the ordinance to say, hey, we have a nuisance abatement ordinance that we passed because we have a deer issue. Here's what we think should be done. Now you implement it.
Well, it's funny. This is not on purpose. So once again, I see, Good Morning Mechanic. Thanks for some questions in there. We didn't plan to go down like this exact path, but these are kind of your two main niches right now.
That's
like
right.
your sidewalks,
Yes.
and for the community, and also the deer problem.
But they relate to everything that we just talked about, right?
I agree. They come all full circle.
Yes, they do.
Which is great, because I have so many questions about the deer program.
Yes. Okay.
So let's talk about what city council passed. And I know this has been going on for years, right? Like, for those listening, let's be real. We've all seen the Facebook groups and the messages where I hate deer, and then the other person goes, well, I feed them in my backyard because I love them.
Yes.
They're part of the scenery.
I want to say that they are delicious. Very delicious.
It's not going to get better. Like I said, I live on the south side of town. We're putting up another, I think, 700 houses within a couple of miles of me. Obviously, Ryan Holmes is putting up developments left and right. The more and more houses we take up, the less and less field there is, the less and less woods there is. So there's going to be those deer. Unfortunately, they should be heading south, but they're all dying down there right now.
Well, remember, it's not just a problem in the city of Medina. It's a problem probably statewide and Northeast Ohio.
Northeast, I would say Northeast
Yes,
Ohio, because I don't know if
yes.
you know familiar right now, but the drought down in South is killing deer by the thousands.
Oh, are they? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a certain midge that gets created from drought times, and basically like infects the deer.
Yeah, I think it's called deer wasting disease. I think I heard about it.
Yeah, I think so, but it's like killing thousands of them.
Well, that's Mother Nature's way to solve the problem, isn't it?
It's not working up. It's not working up here though.
Well, we have to try to plan and how to manage it. We're never going to solve it. So that's when I talked about a deer management plan, a comprehensive deer management plan. That's really all we could do.
Well, let's start right now with what city council passed, because
Yes.
I'm not sure. Because that's the first part of this,
Yes.
right? What did city council?
City
actually
council
pass?
passed an ordinance that says, okay, let's try bow hunting. Because we discussed it and thought about it and talked about it and said, well, bow hunting is something that we thought maybe something that can lead into it and you can build upon it. But of course, bow hunting program has been a failure, right? We've only harvested 18 deer last year.
But
So
let's talk about. Like, I want to go in depth on that. What did city council actually allow? Did they just say anybody could go out and shoot a deer?
no,
with a
no,
bow?
no. What city council allowed is to say that, we'll allow bow hunting in the city. Because first of all,
So-
you're not allowed to bow hunt in the city, period. You can't shoot in the city, but we changed the ordinance says you're allowed to do this. And how do you do that? Well, you have to qualify to do that.
So what are those qualifications?
You have to you have to be a qualified shooter. You have to get there's I guess there's a program where you have to shoot a target at so many times. You have to be proficient at shooting. You just can't be anybody come out the street and say, I'm going to try bow hunting today. No, you have to be
Okay.
You have to be qualified to do so.
So the initial aspect is a local, and you're not sure exactly the details are, but it's a local program where they have to go in there. Actually
It's not. Look, I
qualify.
think it's set up by ODNR. There's a state
Okay.
program when you have to get your license because you have to get a license too. You have to have a license to hunt.
Okay.
So you have to have that license, and that license is part of the process through ODNR.
Okay, so they get that, and
yes.
then what? I'm allowed to just go down Medina
No,
Square?
no, you have to go to the city hall and you have to talk to the police department. Now, the police department will approve where you're allowed to hunt and how you're allowed to hunt. You can't hunt from the ground level. You have to be in a tree stand. And the tree stand has to be approved. The location has to be approved by the police department that it's safe. It's a safe area around you to hunt, that you're not too close to residences, that they look at all those aspects and they'll approve the location. And once they approve the location, then that's where you can stay and you can't move from that spot. You put your tree stand up and that's where it is. And that's where you're allowed to hunt. And then before you could go out and hunt, you have to call the police department saying, I'm going out today to go hunt at that tree stand. So you have to notify them so they know where you are. So there's all these safety precautions that are involved in it before you just can't go out in your backyard and shoot a deer.
Okay.
Just in the time of this explanation, there's been 18 more deer born. Not really, but kind of, probably.
All right, so complicated, not as complicated. Pass the test, become certified, able to hunt within the city.
Get permission through the city.
Then you got to get permission from
Yes.
the city of where you're going to put
Yes.
the stand.
Yes.
I can't just put it up in my backyard.
No, not allowed. You have to get permission, and it has to be approved by the police department. And I think the lieutenant is in charge of the program, Lieutenant Markham, and then he would determine if this is safe to hunt at this location.
So then I say, hey, look, this is where I'm putting my tree
Yes,
stand. He
yes.
says, yeah, that's good.
Yes.
I can go back there any day that I want because it's already been approved once, but I have to let them know that
Yes.
that's the day that I'm hunting.
Correct.
Is there property guidelines? Like, does the property have to be at least a certain?
It has to be. It could be in the city. It could be an aggregation of properties, like your neighbors, because most city lots
So,
are smaller.
I got
So
you.
you have to get your neighbors involved to say, we have a big backyard. There's 5 neighbors that own, maybe 2 acres because it's a valley or something.
Gotcha.
And they would all have to agree. I'm okay with it.
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember
Nothing like
seeing?
getting your neighbors to agree on something.
Do you remember seeing the signs? Because this started 2 years ago,
Yeah,
I believe,
about 2
right?
yes,
and
that's
so there
correct,
were
yes.
the signs out there with the ban the bow hunting and
Yes.
all that. Like, yeah,
It's amazing to
remember
me. Now, let me. All right, so that's the gist of the program.
That's the
right?
gist of the program. Correct.
Now,
yes.
if I own my own property that's at least a certain size, do I have to follow all these guidelines if
Yes.
I'm inside the city
yes,
limits?
yes, because you're in the city.
Well, I
you just
could
can't. You just can't shoot things in the city.
Now I see. Now, what are we doing for like the parks? Are we doing organized hunts or anything in the parks?
Well, the parks are being involved now because parks are bigger, right? We have Reagan Park's about 320 acres,
Yeah.
and we have all these other areas, and they're looking at them, say, maybe we could try bow hunting in those areas, which makes sense, right? They're bigger, because and the problem that I think we're missing, and I don't understand because I'm not a hunter. I grew up on a farm, but
yeah.
I raised animals. My son-in-law, he hunts deer a lot, and so I talk to him a lot because he's been doing it for years, his whole life. So you got to understand, well, what happens when you shoot a deer? Well, if you shoot a deer in the right spot, it'll fall over maybe in 10 yards, 20 yards. But if you miss, who knows where it's going to go?
Right.
It could go for a half a mile away. Nobody knows. So then you start thinking about that. Is that going to be the best program for the city? And that's kind of where I said, well, maybe not now. Maybe I learned. You grow. Maybe that's not the best answer. Maybe we should go to the next step, which is either qualified personnel from the from the police department shooting them in a controlled situation are sharpshooters, because maybe that's more accurate and they won't run because it's a more accurate kill shot, right? And it's probably better for the deer because they go quicker.
But it's probably more expensive, right?
Yes.
Right, and that's where I think this all comes into. Like,
Yes.
There's a lot of different things. I think the previous mayor had the idea of euthanizing them or
Birth control.
birth control for them, essentially.
Yes, and I talked to ODNR about
very
that.
expensive as well.
It's very expensive, but we have so many.
Yeah, it takes way too
It's not
long.
manageable because
Right.
you can't identify
Yeah.
the ones that you gave the birth control to or didn't give it, and you can't. And I called them and said, why don't we just put the feed out there and they'll all eat it? And they said, well, the raccoons will eat it, all these other animals eat it, then you'll sterilize everything.
Now it's in the
Right,
ecosystem.
yeah.
So it's very complicated to try to figure out how do you solve that problem. And we tried to do the best we can, but again, bow hunting not working. So we have to step back and say, okay, maybe that doesn't work. Let's try something
Well, I
else.
know a lot of married couples say that, like, when they put a television in their bedroom, that ruins a lot of things. So maybe we just buy a lot of televisions for these deer. What do we think? Give them iPads? Let's give them iPads.
Give them iPads.
Well, as we talked about earlier, they do look both ways before they cross the street. So they're
Maybe we'll just put up deer crossings.
They're learning
everywhere.
something. Well, yeah, deer crossing here, so they'll look at the sign and cross over.
Yeah,
those
make
spots.
sure they only go there. I don't think that the bow hunting program is wrong. I think that is going to be ultimately the best thing. I think it just needs, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we tried something, it didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? Right. And this is where you talk
Right.
about problem solving.
Yes.
Well, it didn't work because we only shot 18 deer.
And
We
why
didn't-
did we shoot 18 deer
why,
only there?
why did we not get more people's involvement? Right. And then
question.
it's like, okay, did we make it too difficult? If I have to get my 5 neighbors to agree on something, I
Mm-hmm.
could ask them what we're going to have for, I mean, you're married. Ask your wife what you're going to have for dinner tonight. It's good luck agreeing on the first place you're going to stop at, right? Let alone when it comes to shooting a deer, because some people do love it. I was at my friend's house. Their house butts up to a park, and they're like, "Oh, we're cooking. You're going to see the deer come up." And I'm like, "We're like right on the road. Isn't that an issue?"
Right.
Like, but I think that that's the correct response. I think that there, we had Kaylee Keller on from Keller Meats last week or 2 weeks ago now, and
She loves deer too.
yeah, she loves deer too. But we brought up the conversation, like, would you get involved in something to help the city when it comes to processing these? Because some people would do the hunt, but they only have use for so much meat. Then it's
Correct.
like, what am I going to do with 4 extra
Correct.
deer? But if there's a local partnership with a local business that says, hey, will you help process extra deer and we can sell it to the community for way less? That way you can pay for the processing as a favor of the community. Is that something that would work? And they're just like, yeah, I'd be open to hearing something like that.
Or give it to the community. I think Parma,
Right.
they have a program where they sign up if you want to take a deer, but they have them, the individual take it to their own processing, but they give it to them for free.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things
Yes.
in that, especially with the cost of ground beef being.
Yes.
I was just at a store the other day, $11 a pound. Like that is
wild.
insane to me that ground beef is that high right now. But yeah, I think that there's potential there. I really think that's going to be the only way it's going to work.
Right.
I mean, hopefully, some of the ideas that you have will come into fruition.
Well,
but-
yeah, the other things you have to change the habits of deers, as we talked about. The deer, they eat. Why they come into the resident? Because there's so much food available.
Yeah.
So if you could plant things that they like in the, next to the parkland or in the parkland in these open areas, maybe they'll just congregate there and stay there more instead of keep trying to come into the residential areas. I don't know if that'll work or
Yeah,
not.
The problem with that is deer are going to always move.
They do
right?
move,
And they're
yeah.
going to have
Yeah.
their set. And you say, oh, I put them in Reagan Parkway. Well, it's only a matter of time before they get spooked and they shoot out onto Reagan Road.
That's true.
Or they shoot out onto Route 3 or they shoot into the Target parking lot. I mean, they're everywhere out here.
But any
I
solutions?
can see why it's a major
Yes,
issue
it
for
is.
you, but it's like one of those issues where it's like, couldn't the last mayor fix this problem?
Well, I think it had to start probably 10, 12 years ago, starting the process because, the number, it's just exponential, right? Because every year there's going to be more fawns born. And the more deer you have, the more fawns you have.
Yeah.
And they're always having 2.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
like doubling the number.
Yeah.
So it's going to take years to bring the number back into a manageable level. And I think that's what people are looking at. I've heard situations, well, just shoot the bucks because then if they can't breed, okay, I'm sure there's bucks everywhere else that are going to come in and take over the area because
Yeah,
they're
this
very
is gonna be
territorial.
it's gonna be like ladies' night.
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
gonna
so-
get more bucks. You're gonna be like, hey, fellas,
Yeah.
down there in
Party.
Medina's where all the ladies are at.
Party is here.
So, there has to be a solution. Remember, we're not the only ones that have this problem.
Right.
Right.
So we have to look at what other people are doing and what's being successful to see what would be successful here. Because maybe what's successful in one town is not successful in our town. So I'm just open to say we have to try everything. And my whole plan would be you have to have multiple strategies at once because one strategy is not going to solve the problem.
Sure.
You have to try everything.
That's definitely one of those things too, where we talked about political divide. That's definitely one of those things that crosses that threshold because you have the animal lovers, then
Yeah,
you have
I
the
get
people
it.
that are like,
Yeah.
I've hit 4 deers in the last 6 months. Do whatever you got to do.
Right.
So you hit that issue. That, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of creates a little buzz in the community.
Yes.
The last time it
Yes.
happened with some protests and things like
Yes,
that.
yes, and that's why I'm saying you have to have a multi-strategy approach.
Yeah.
Because if you pick one thing, it's not going to work. If you pick another thing, it may not work. But if you try everything, you can say, okay, we're trying everything to see what will work. And calling definitely has to be part of that solution.
Yeah.
Because you just can't say we're going to try to do all these things and the deer are just going to behave because they're animals. You have to try to do everything you can and to try to move the ship. It's kind of like moving a ship in an ocean. You can't just turn it. You have to move it slowly, and that's kind of what we have to try to think about on how to solve the problem. And again, the right decision is not satisfying one group of people or another group of people. I always approach it, an answer to a problem is everybody's equally unhappy.
Yeah.
Because that's the best answer. Because you hit it right down the middle, and you're trying to solve the problem. You're not really favoring any one group, but you're solving a problem.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I approach things.
Yeah, that makes sense. We talked about those two. Do you have a third big initiative for becoming mayor? Like, is there something else?
Yes, there is. I mean, all these relate to safety, right? Everything relates to safety. Everybody says, well, what is it? Well, safety is the central concern. Safety with deer and hitting cars, safety with the sidewalks, people falling. But you have safety with crosswalks. That's another big thing. And traffic, because they go hand in hand, especially around the square, right? We talked about, the crosswalk. We had, I think, 1 fatality and at least 4 other incidents of people getting hit in crosswalks. In fact, I was driving yesterday on Reagan Parkway going from one of my apartments, and I was going straight. There was a turn, a guy turning left, and there was somebody standing there crossing the road. They almost got hit. And I'm thinking to myself, how could that person almost get hit when it was their turn to cross, but the person just kept going and it beeped the horn and the person was yelling, and it was like, there has to be alertness on both sides of the,
Right.
the driver and the person crossing. Because if you just think you're going to cross and the driver's not going to do something, that doesn't happen. But I think uptown with all the events we have to be more cognizant of the traffic that we have, people being distracted as always, and how do we make that safer? And, we did get a grant to do what I call bump outs, as we talked about, which are raised concrete areas that go into the parking area that people can see better, and you could see cars and they could see you. That's only part of the solution, right? That may help a little bit. And maybe identifying the crosswalks with maybe, coloring of a different color, not yellow, because that would ruin the square, but, maybe a brick color or something so people understand that this is a crosswalk.
It's so hard because and especially with traffic in
Yes.
and out, right?
Mhm.
Because my wife, and I think I made the joke with when we met the other day, my wife gets so frustrated. She's like, every time traffic's backed up, the light turns green, somebody hits the middle of the lane sidewalks crossing, and it's like,
Yeah.
you sit there, they take their time crossing, the light's red, like one car moved, and then you have half of the other lane in the turn lane, like in the middle of the intersection, and it's like, wow. And you're right. How do you solve that problem? One, you made those middle crosswalks, or they did, so that people would cross in
Because they cross there.
crosswalks, because they cross
They
wherever.
cross anyway. Yeah.
That's right.
And then that screws up traffic. And then traffic starts running lights, trying to beat
Yes.
crosswalks, not paying attention because they don't want to have to stop because
Right.
they've been in traffic for 20 minutes. And it's like, I mean, a lot of this, I understand that you're taking the, mayor's approach of like, I want to help fix these problems, but it's like, eventually we have to be adults out there.
Right.
Like when
Well,
we're
you do, yes.
guys, when we're hitting the crosswalk, we can walk 40 feet, go to the corner, or we could like pay attention when we're crossing. We don't have to stop. It's just like these little things, but you have an idea with the actual, system of
Yes,
the lights and
yes.
things like that. You want to share more about that?
Sure, yeah. I think incorporated in an idea would probably be artificial intelligence, right? Because that can work faster than we could work, right? And so if we already have an integrated signalization system throughout this city that's all timed through a computer system and the traffic lights. So AI could probably even do that. You could probably even try to hook it up to the crosswalks that they could manage it because traffic flows at different rates at different times of day. So, and there's also, I think, cameras now that could be put out on the traffic signalization that can judge what the traffic flow is in certain areas. Is there more coming, cross traffic, or the on down 42, and it can learn from itself to say, hey, we got to change the timing of the signalizations, maybe let it green longer where there's more traffic so it can flow and go down the way of the lights to make sure the traffic is able to disperse and exit the area before it changes the light. So I don't think we can solve that problem, but I truly believe AI can have a great hand in solving that problem.
Okay, so that's your hope is to eventually be able to come up.
I mean,
with
the AI
find that
is,
solution.
I hate to say it, but it's coming in all different areas, and it can be very beneficial, especially in a situation like this where it can do those calculations. It could watch the traffic patterns. It could say, hey, I need to change this light, maybe keep it 2 seconds longer, 3 seconds longer, who knows? And that would clear the traffic.
Makes sense.
So, I mean, those are things we could look at. I don't know if that's the answer, but we should be looking at it.
So when you come up with that idea, you then have to take that to the city council, right?
Correct, yes.
Your old good buddies.
Well,
You've been there for
I mean-
27 years. Hey guys, I need some help here. Help me out. Let's go.
Well, I think the good thing about the way our city runs as opposed to or compared to other cities is that we all try to work together to solve the problem. The administration and council, we all try to get together to say, what's the best solution? So it's not really a game to try to say, hey, do this. It's say, okay, will this work? How much will it cost? Will it solve the problem? And will it be better for the community? And we all look at that together to say, yes, let's try it.
So when you guys do that, is that a public meeting?
Yes.
It is a public meeting. Where
Yes.
does somebody find out about these meetings?
Well, they're always online. Usually at the finance meeting, there's committee meetings. They're always publicized. They're always on the website of the city. You could come to there. We try to get the information out. The finance meeting is where everything's discussed, and we discuss everything in finance before it goes to council, because that's when council, you know, well, you guys aren't talking about it because we talked about it numerous
finance
times.
meetings.
Yes. So that's where it's all the problems are trying to be solved.
Quick note on the AI traffic control, because I was trying to remember the name. I saw I've been to this city, but this was long before they put this in. But I know there's a city in China that has a functioning system. They have a lot of autonomous vehicles over there, and it all interconnects. But it looks like Pittsburgh is modeling SureTrack, which does now that Pittsburgh is a massive city in comparison to Medina, obviously.
Which
but
just went to a concert there right downtown, and I got out of there probably in 8 minutes. I was blown away at how easy it was to get through
And-
traffic with all the construction they have going on in there too. That makes sense.
And then, so they're using SureTrack, and then I know that there's parts of California that are modeling this. So earlier this year, I went out to Stagecoach, and this is done at the same grounds where they do the Coachella Festival, and so you have this area that it's residential. So it's the going north and south. They're 3 lanes each direction because of this festival grounds. It's polo grounds when it's not these major festivals. But anyway, they get 130,000 additional people in these areas very quickly. Pulling out of there is the same thing. It's all traffic is controlled by the lights and these cameras and everything, and it's the same thing. Like you would imagine you throw an extra 100,000 vehicles into and we're talking about a 4-mile area between the grounds and the highway. Like that's almost wall-to-wall cars over there, and they move cars through those areas pretty. So yeah, it would seem, and this can't be a cheap system, obviously, but
Well, we already have
we know
part of the
it's available.
system integrated, right? We already have the signalization system that we had put in years ago.
Yeah.
So we just need to upgrade it.
Yeah.
And if we can solve a problem like that and it can be safer, isn't that a good thing?
It's a
Yeah,
great
absolutely. It's a great thing, especially when it comes to traffic and with the growth of the city recently, right?
Well, the growth of the city, we're a build out, right? There's a few houses that are going to fill in some lots throughout the city, but our challenge is going to be the townships, because that's where people are moving and that's where the growth is going to occur. So they're going to be coming in and through the city and
Shopping.
Well, I was going to say that's
Yes.
where it is, right? I mean, we just got to Acme on this side of town,
Yes.
but I mean, typically grocery shopping and things like that, we're driving through the square. And
Yes.
that's traffic. And when are you going to the grocery store? It's not like you go at noon.
Yes,
You're going at the end of the day when everybody's
Or the
coming
weekend.
home, or when the
Right.
schools, or the weekend. And it's great that we have these issues because it also, I mean, the difference in the Medina Square in the last 10, 12
Yes.
years.
great.
It's awesome.
Yes.
It's great to see the community out and about. It's great that there's always farmers markets or arts in the square or different events. And it's fantastic to see those getting, more and more traffic through there, but then
Yes.
more people. So you also play a part in the parking problem out there.
Yeah,
and solving
the
it.
the
How's some of
parking decks. I remember back in 2008, I think it was, the current county courts were going to relocate. They said we don't have enough parking. I said, hey, we don't want you to leave because that kind of creates energy that begets other energy around the square. So we would want them to stay. So I said, well, we'll build a parking deck. We'll pay for it and build it. You guys, put some money in, but we'll put the lion's share in because we could use that parking for the events that we have. So we did that. And that worked out great. The relationship with the library, the county, and the city, we now have a 360 space parking deck behind the county courts. And, up top, it's probably never full in the winter because nobody wants to park. They always want to park underneath where they don't get their cars. So I get it. But during the bigger events, I drive there and it's full up top. People fill it, which is what we want, right? And it's free.
Yeah.
We don't charge for the parking.
Yeah, that's great.
We don't charge for it. So because it's an amenity that, again, is for the public to help people enjoy the square. So why would you charge for it? So we did another parking deck by the City Hall, and that's only about 190 spots. But again, it serves a purpose. We want other development to occur. We want to try to develop apartments and maybe some other retail spaces on Liberty next to Solly's. So where are they going to park? So we have to have those parking things available. And that was a little different too. I came up with since deal with this in my law practice, tax increment financing it's called. You create a district. And when they build something, of course, the real estate tax value goes up because you have an improvement on the property. So some of that money will go used to help pay for the parking deck over time. So you reach a compromise with the schools, and I think it's 50-50. So 50% of that money goes to pay for the parking deck, 50% of it goes to the schools still. And that over time will help pay for the parking deck so the residents of the city don't have to pay for it.
Right.
So, we front the money, we loan the money to the district, and then the district pays us back over time.
And that's also something that, once again, you don't charge for that parking either.
Nope.
You don't realize how beneficial that is until you use it, and you don't have to get out even $2 or $3 because there's not many city. I mean, you go to Westlake to go to Crocker Park, and you're going to pay a couple, $3, $4, $5 to park, right?
Correct,
so
yes.
it's nice that's got built there, and it does help out a little bit.
And we receive grants, and we have electric charging stations in the deck.
Yeah.
And they want to put them in the county side too, which I agree. Why not? Because you got to give that opportunity of people who not only live here, but people to come and visit. Hey, if you want to pay to charge your car, there's a charging station. Put your credit card in and charge your car.
Got a couple of questions here. Somebody's been really active. Previous guest, Good Morning Mechanic. He asked, what was the original idea for the middle crosswalks? I know you and I talked about that separately. But
Well, I think back in the day, people were crossing there normally. And so the crosswalks were put in there just for a safety measure because people were going to cut through the middle anyways.
Right.
So they were put there originally years ago to help solve a problem of people jaywalking. Because if you didn't have them, they're still going to do it.
Right.
So it was kind of a safety issue. And then we put the flashing lights to even make it safer. But they've been there so long, and there's so much traffic that people use them during events mainly, right? They use it, and sometimes they use them other times. But you just can't close them down and say, okay, you can't use these anymore because they're always going to be there. So it was mainly there for safety because people were jaywalking.
Yeah. Well, hopefully AI can help do that only when it's a red light. It's okay to wait 30 seconds, people.
Well, yeah, you could make people. I think that could probably be helpful.
Hey, I had a question, just rewinding back a little bit in that, like we're talking about like the residential build out in and around the areas, mostly in the townships, right? I know there's several hundred homes going in down on this end, and I live on the south end as well. What's the partnership between city government and township government and county government? Like, what does that look like?
Well, that's another thing that I was involved in years ago. It's called a joint economic development district. And it doesn't deal with residential so much because the joint economic development district is only really permitted to use commercial property. Now, apartments are commercial,
Right.
but single family homes are not. So, and we set up an agreement between Montville and the city of Medina and created the district along Route 3 to be a joint economic development district where if a business wants to locate there, first of all, it's all voluntary. The business guy would say, I want to join the JED. It's not mandatory. We don't make people join it. And that's where people get confused. We were trying to work with Medina Township and they were confused of, well, I don't want to join it. And I said, if you don't want to join it, don't join. It's voluntary because it'll help the businesses. That's all we're trying to do is help the business. Join and get the services they want, get a grant from the JED district to help them pay for some of their landscaping or some of their storm sewers or whatever it is they want to use the money for.
Let me understand. So obviously we're in Montville, Medina.
Yes.
There's an agreement. It's almost like an ally.
Yes,
Right? Like,
yes, a
and that's-
collaboration.
And that's called the JED.
Joint economic, yes, a JED agreement. Yes,
Okay.
there's an agreement in place currently. Yes.
And you mentioned Medina Township, which is like up 18, I presume, right?
Yeah, we tried to talk to them about it, but they don't
want any part of it.
They don't want no part.
Fair
of it.
enough.
Okay.
All right. So then this JED, I'm assuming the businesses pay into that through their income taxes?
Correct.
Okay.
They
Or through
voluntarily
their-
join to say, I want to join and I will pay, it's a net profits tax for the business, 5%.
Okay.
And the employees will pay an income tax in there.
gotcha.
So when we did the JED, we did it, and of course the schools joined, Waite and Blake Elementary, because they were in the township. And they had a lot of problem because all the teachers wanted to work at those schools because they didn't have to pay income tax. So we said, okay, that'll solve the problem. Everybody's paying income tax. So now everybody says, oh, okay, I don't want to, I can work anywhere now.
Right.
It's fair. It's more fair for all and businesses have those problems because some of the businesses locate there and they say, well, you don't pay. They're like Drug Mart, for example. They were like, oh, they're in the JED, but because they have stores in the city and not in the city. So everybody says, well, I want to work at that store.
Right.
So they help solve their problems too, because it's more fair for their employees, because not one employee is being treated differently than another.
And then they have access to additional city programs like grants.
Yes,
and stuff for
they
build
get,
out.
they get grants. The JED, the money that comes into the JED, the income tax, 20% of it goes right to a maintenance fund. So off the top, we take 20% and put it in a fund that can only be used for properties located in the JED, and they can apply to get the money out to help them, renovate, or if it's a new construction for landscaping or for storm sewer. So we try to get the money to come back to them.
So who oversees that money in the JED?
There's a board.
Oh, really?
Yes, there's a JED board, and there's township members and there's city members. I'm on the board.
I was gonna say, so the mayor.
Yes.
Are you as the mayor on the board, or are you as just an individual?
An
on the board?
appointee of the board.
Gotcha.
From the mayor, he appoints me to be on the board.
Okay, so what happens if you become mayor? Can you
There's
stay on that board, or do you have to?
Well,
appoint somebody
if they
else?
want to appoint me on the board, they can. I've been on the board since the beginning because I created the JED, right? So
Gotcha.
I help author the document itself. So I've been involved in it for many, many years. But at some point, somebody else is going to have to be on that board and carry out the purpose of the board.
And that jobs board is to see where the money goes, and then also
Yes.
like it's one thing if 10 businesses can say we want money to do landscaping, but as the board, I'm looking at it as like which one needs it the worst based off of what I'm seeing, or also which one's going to make the biggest impact on the area.
You hit it on the head. We have a structure because you always have to have a structure because everybody will try to take advantage of a situation.
Right.
So there's a structure of how much revenue you generate through your income tax collection depends how much money you get. The more money you bring in from income tax, the more money you get, because it's kind of you try to make it fair.
Sure.
So if you have somebody bringing in $100,000 in income tax to the group, well, you're going to give them more money than somebody who only brings in $5,000.
So is this follow the same platform as you mentioned before, where if we don't use like that 20% that's set up for maintenance, if it's not, is that going to roll over
Yes,
as well?
there's an account. I don't remember the exact number that we have in there, but we're investing the money to keep it in there so it could be used. We don't spend it. It's only could be used for that purpose, so it stays in there. We don't take it out. We are all agreement that the money stays there.
So the rest of that money, because you're talking 20% for maintenance, that other 80%, is that going towards improvements to the overall JED? So anywhere along that route?
That goes back to the city. 40% goes back to the city's general fund, and 40% goes to the township general fund. And they could use it however they would like to use it. And sometimes they use it for those purposes. Yes.
Gotcha. So that's probably where, as the local residents, can be tough. Is if I don't. Is there transparency on that? Do I get to see where that money's?
Well, you have
spent?
to ask the township.
Yeah.
And the city, it goes back into we have a JED account. We know where all that money goes in
Gotcha.
the city. And we use it for economic development in the area. 'Cause it's not in the city, right? It's in the township. So we try to use that money to help spur other economic development.
I
in the
gotcha.
JED.
Well, not in the JED's in the township, remember, but we do the marketing for that. We try to help out with our economic development director to do the marketing for that, and we try to use the money for that. But there's other times that we use the money to help pave a parking lot that would be beneficial for another economic development purpose.
Gotcha. So, and the same thing goes for the township. For instance, Montville Township, they might take that money and say, well, this area is growing on its own. We need to invest in our fire department, or we need to invest in our police
It
department.
would help solve the problem because you are getting that development occurring is causing a stress on services.
Gotcha.
So they may use it for that.
Now, the difference between a township and the city, you're obviously going for mayor of the city. Townships operate differently, though, correct?
Correct. They have 3 trustees, and the trustees act as, in a city, council and the mayor. They do it all. Three individuals do it all. Whereas the city, because it's bigger, they have their council representatives, and then they have the mayor that administers it. I guess the state views the townships as, well, there's smaller population, so 3 people can handle everything.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if they've seen property taxes in Montville Township, but I don't know if I want 3 people with that much money. Yeah.
Is that number, is that just like so a majority rule kind of thing?
Correct.
for
Odd
decision
number.
making?
Yeah, odd. You keep it an odd number so that there's a vote. There's always a winner.
All right,
You
we're
know.
going to need those 3 people's bank accounts.
Yeah, I need receipts.
Transparent.
But they work pretty well. I mean, every township's different, right?
Yeah, sure.
But they have their levies that they have to do. They have to spend their money and solve their problems the same way as the city. But maybe they represent maybe a smaller number of people, and it's a larger area, right? The townships are 5 miles by 5 miles, whereby the city, we're just a kind of a amalgamation of all the different townships, the 4 surrounding townships: York, Medina, Lafayette, and Montville. We're kind of in the middle of that.
Right, and you just kind of feed into all of that.
Yep.
You left out Granger Township.
They're not by us.
Bye.
Oh. What other questions you have, David?
Big question is, and I'm sure you're going to head into this. So day one, let's say, you're sworn in and you win. What's day one look like for you?
Well, day one, I think the goal of everything is getting to really understand the departments. And I think as a mayor, you should go on a day process with that department, like ride on the garbage truck for a day, learn what people do, actually physically do, because if you don't have an understanding of what needs to be done unless you experience it. So I would want to get involved and experience all the different departments and experience all the different things that happen in the police department, the fire department. And we do this on council, but we don't do it for a whole day, right? We go on a visit to learn about it, but we don't actually physically get involved in a whole day process of it to really get to understand how things work, because you need to understand it before you can manage it.
So you mentioned sanitation, obviously police. What are all the departments that fall up underneath the mayor?
Well, you have the sanitation department, you have the water department, you have the police department, you have the parks and recs department, you have the recreation center, you have the forestry department, you have the building department, you have the planning department, you have the economic development department.
Wow. Your first 30 days, you're going to be spending. You're going to be
memorizing departments.
As it should be, right? I mean, you need to understand all of that in order to manage it effectively.
Yeah, I can imagine too. I mean, there's so many nuances in each of those departments that unless you're actually hands-on at some point, and even a day, I mean, a day is hardly enough. But if it's, I would imagine, I don't know if the current mayor had taken that approach, but if you were doing that once a year or every 6 months,
that's a full-time job, just doing that.
It is.
That would be.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, how do you run? And really, let's not be kidding ourselves. Being mayor is running a business. Right?
Yes, it is.
It is. You're running the city's business as far as their overall budget, what money's spent on, what you're having city council attack,
and where the money should be spent, right?
Yeah. So unless you're actually visiting these different departments, and let's say we take the parks for a day, right? I mean, the parks could be perfectly fine for one day. And you don't think there's any reason to donate and put any more money?
No, but when I say when you visit, you have to talk to the employees.
Agreed. Yeah. Right. And that's
then
why you need
you
that
get the real
full-time.
story, right? And that's how you should learn, right? And as mayor, that's what I would do. I say, what ideas you have to make it better?
Yeah.
What is your idea? What's the problems here that you see because you're there day to day?
Yeah.
And how do you think it could be made better?
Yeah,
Because you have to rely on those people to help solve your problems, right?
And I would imagine that's something that's, hey, I'm going to come visit. I want to hear everybody's point of perspective.
Well, you got to work with them alongside with them, and you go out on a call, like a police call, or you go out on a garbage truck, and then they say, "Oh, this happens all the time," and then you can say, "Okay, how would you fix that?"
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you solve the problems.
That's fantastic. So be on the lookout if John gets elected mayor and you're speeding through the township, the mayor might be in the passenger seat of that police car. But that's awesome. I mean, that's a great idea. So that's that initial aspect for you. Is
Yes.
like, I want to learn these departments and how they
Well,
operate.
just like when you operate a business, you don't go into business saying, I'm going to change all. You have to understand the business before you can change the business.
Sure.
And you can modify it. And you have to know, what people think about what the problems are in order to help solve the problems. So I think that's all the process of communication.
What does a successful mayorship look like for you in your mind?
A successful mayorship to me would look like, helping solve those problems and getting positive feedback and positive engagement with the residents to try to say, okay, here's the problems that I see it. Here's the problems that you told me that you see, residents, and am I solving those for you? If I'm moving the needle in the right direction, those problems would be modified and starting to go away. Not overnight. Everybody thinks things are going to go. No, nothing goes away overnight. It takes time to change. And so that's how a successful mayorship would be. What is my engagement with the residents, and am I solving those problems for them? Am I making the community safer?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does your background in athletics, being an attorney, being in real estate, being in the city council, does that background help you in a sense of getting out real time with the community? Right? Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, like where you're like,
Yes.
hey, I'm making an appearance today, folks, at the local farmers exchange or whatever. I want you to come say hi to me.
Sure.
Is that stuff that
I think that's helpful. I think, as in every job, life experiences helps you solve the problems of your job, right? The more life experiences that you're able to look at things differently because maybe you experienced it. So I think with my background of being raised on a farm, going to college, being a lawyer, owning businesses, I have a lot of life experience in a lot of different things. So when somebody says, well, this needs to be fixed because I think the wall is bad, I can say, you know what? I experienced that as an owner of a property. You're not telling me the truth. So you can gauge of what people are telling you if your ideas or whatever come into play to say, are you really telling me the truth? Or are you telling me what you want to tell me?
Right.
Because then you ask the question. You say, well, what if this happened? And then they have to answer it because you can tell when somebody's going to lie to you. So they answer the question. So I ask a lot of questions when I on council and stuff. I ask the questions because they say something and I say, well, that doesn't sound exactly right. What if this happened? And then you have to answer it.
Yeah.
So you kind of turn the table a little bit and put the question on the person you're dealing with to tell you what it is, because then you have to make the decision. You can't make a decision in a vacuum. You better ask the right questions to get the answer. Because when you go to an interview like this, if you don't ask me all the questions, you're not going to get all the answers.
Well, yeah. And speaking of all the questions, guys, if you want to comment with questions that you have for our mayor candidate here, please do, because we don't want to think of all of them.
I did just think of one question, and this is a little bit of a rewind. So obviously you've been a councilman for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. What point did you become the president of the city council, and what was that decision like? What led you to that path?
Well, that's interesting. I've been a council at large for many years, and at the meetings, either rightly or wrongly, I would always try to take over the meeting because I would always ask the questions. So I was doing that, and I did the budget, and I kept asking the questions. And so when we had discussions, I ended up being the one talking the most. And, I said, well, if I'm doing why don't I just become president? When the next president's there, I'll just do that because I'm pretty much doing the meetings now because
Right.
I ask all the questions because I think of these things and I want to do the best I can for the community. So I think it's incumbent upon me as a council representative to ask those questions.
Sure.
So since I was asking him, I said, why don't I become council president? Then I'll ask him more, but then I'll run the meeting.
Yeah. Sounds like a good question to ask.
That was a good question.
Is that well? So is that so? Are you nominated for it?
It's an elected
It is
position.
elected
Yes,
position.
it's
Yeah.
just it's weird in the city of Medina. We are a charter community, and you are elected president of council. You run for that seat.
Okay.
In some other places, like the board of county commissioners, every year the other commissioners elect their president. And in some communities, they elect their president of council. Like the council members will select amongst the council members who the president should be. In Medina, that's not the case. You run for that seat.
Gotcha. So
Little-
this
little
is the
different.
first time you've had your name on a yard sign, then.
Not the first time.
Obviously, you're a competitive person. We don't have to. We were hoping to have Jim on at the same time so that we can kind of talk about some of these ideas that you guys have together. But I think this works out better. But where do you differ as a potential candidate for mayor of Medina from Jim Shields? Because I'm going to
Right,
preface this by saying, if I didn't know any better, and I think I had this conversation with David when we came to your thing, I was like, I would think that Jim's the favorite only because for some reason at that point I thought I saw more yard signs, but also because of the fact that he had the backing of the sheriff, which I find out later he also did the campaign for the sheriff. So, I mean, if the sheriff doesn't back him, then I don't know how. But he had the backing of the sheriff, the previous mayor, who's been in power for 16 years. How do you guys differ on your approach, and what makes you a better candidate?
Well, that's a great question, and I view it as, I look at what have you done for the city in the past is a pretty good predictor of what you will do in the city in the future. So the things that I've done, and I think that this is where we differ, is I'm an idea guy. I try to come up with these ideas to solve the problems. And we talked about some of them, the 5-year budget plan with the carry forward funds that saves money for the city. That's an idea that I came up with, right? And those ideas, and I look at them, what does that idea do? And this is kind of the campaign slogan. It shapes Medina, right? That idea pretty much shaped of how the financial stability of Medina would happen. I came up with the idea of the Christmas lights on the square. Again, why did I do that? Well, because we have a great square. Can we make it better? And I said, well, why don't we put Christmas lights out there to bring the community together? And, there's nothing better than have the community feel like there's a purpose. We have a purpose in our community. So that's an idea that I came up with. The location of the restrooms on the square. We have all these people. People talked about having restrooms on the square. We had it in the old firehouse, and that wasn't big enough. How are you going to have enough restrooms for enough people that come to the square? So I said, well, the bank building's for sale. Let's buy it. Well, how are you going to fit them all in there? I said, well, we can close off the drive-through and put the restrooms in there.
That was a great idea,
So
by the way.
why don't we do that?
Saved me many a times.
So you need to have those things, right? So there's another idea that helped, shape that. The parking decks that we talked about earlier, trying to anticipate problems that will occur in the future and solve them today. So I feel the difference is that I've done those things. I've submitted those requests for, council action. They've been adopted by council. The administration, completed the project. And those things over the years have changed. Another idea was on Route 42, we had a $25 million project to redo Route 42. We talked about burying the utilities and all that. That was a couple $1 million. Would it work? Wouldn't work? Can we relocate the utilities? It really didn't come to fruition.
That's so sad because every time I just literally had that same thing today. I was like, I'm going to ask him about that. So I'm glad you brought it up because I was like, I hate the telephone.
We
poles.
talked
That
about
was-
trying to move them, and it was a couple $1 million. And where would we move them? We'd have to move them behind the businesses. Then we had to get new easements for the utility company. So the complications were more than the benefit. That it came down to that. It was like, okay, we could spend, maybe $3 million, and where are we going to get? Is it worth it? Well, maybe, but you had to weigh that, and it's kind of a tough decision.
Can I ask something? Because this happens on a national level too. We have these ideas, and then it's like, oh, is it going to make people happy? Well, is that not something that we could use social media for? Where like, if you become mayor, you could be like, hey guys, question, want the community's feedback. Do you see a benefit in this versus don't? And I mean, or do you use that at the finance meetings for something?
Well,
like
we
that?
talk about it, but probably not as far as you go, the social media, but that could be a great thing because another idea that we talked about is eliminating some of the parking around the square to make it safer,
Yeah.
bump it out, have restaurants, have things. We could ask social, what do you guys think?
Yeah, because I would love that. I love that idea that you
Yeah,
had.
why not?
For you guys to know, we had a conversation off topic, but it was the idea of eliminating some of the parking around the square. Already, I could hear people going like,
Oh, yeah.
but how cool would it be if you go to PJ Marley's or you go to the pizza joint and you can sit out at some table? I mean, even now, there's times where I just want to sit down on the sidewalk. You have a nice table there, have a coffee,
Right.
And I think that would be great for the community.
See what the community thinks. Because
Yeah.
that's something that can be done. Let's see if we got more favorable responses than not. Because we do have 2 parking decks, remember? So if you're eliminating 20 spaces, is it really going to make that big of a? But I get the change. It's all about change, right?
Sure.
And you have to talk about change in order for it to occur, because if you just can't do it, and that's kind of the process, as you mentioned, get people engaged to talk about it, and hopefully they will get engaged to talk about it.
One thing, and kind of going back to the traffic thing, but I think it ties into this. I've just personal suggestion here, as somebody that definitely avoids the square during certain times, but I'm pro business all the way. But yeah, I think eliminating all the parking there would make it safer, not only for vehicles coming in and coming out, the patio, outdoor seating for the, 8-ish months out of the year that we could do that, but eliminating tractor trailers going through the square.
Is that something that can be done? I
Not
felt like
not
it used
really.
to be, but no.
Because remember, they're all state routes.
Yeah.
The square was born years ago when all the state routes came to a point, and that's the square. So these are all state routes. You can't tell the state that you can't, put traffic through your, truck traffic. You could try, and I think we talked about it.
You can do weight limits.
And what we do, that's why we had a scale at Route 18. We put the scales out there. But we talked about it, and I think if we could do it, the state would cut their funding off for us to fix those roads and stuff, because that's how they would say, if you guys don't want this, here's what we're going to do to you. So there's always a trade-off. There's never an easy answer, because you're right. Well, trucks don't come. Where are they going to go, though? And they don't, granted, they do not want to come through the square.
No,
that is
I
the
watched
worst.
them today.
They
Once
do
again,
not
they
want to
hate
come.
that turn.
So you have to try to figure out, and maybe we can, push them away a little bit on Smith to go around. But again, they still have to make corners.
Yeah.
So therein lies the problem.
Tunnel underneath the town. Just find out what's underneath all these businesses that have been there for 100 years.
Elon's got that tunnel or machine thing that goes. They could dig that thing out.
Quick,
But with times changing, we got to think ahead. Think in the future now. You got to go 25 years in the future. What would traffic look like? Are there going to be as many vehicles? Are there going to be different vehicles? Are there going to be autonomous vehicles? Things may be totally different than we think about, because if autonomous vehicles come out, there'll be less cars because people will be using the same vehicle over and over again, because it'll just be traveling. So that may solve a problem in and of itself in the future. So we have to start thinking about that. How do we plan for that?
yeah.
Because that's going to happen.
So with all the things and ideas that you've mentioned, and I can't fact check you. So if there's anybody listening that knows that they came up with this idea and he's taking it now, what leads to the mayor then deciding who they're going to chase or who they're going to back?
Well,
And why not you with all these ideas and things?
That's a
'Cause
great
he's
question.
because the way I look at it is, like, a lot of the ideas that you've come up with have played a pretty positive role inside the community. But people don't know that about you, most likely, unless they've heard you talk about it. They think it was the mayor's responsibility.
I get it. Well,
So-
the goal is not to take credit for
No,
things.
no.
Only in elections do you take credit for things, right? But the goal is to make the community better. So who cares who came up with it? Let's make it better.
But if I'm the mayor and I'm like, man, people think really highly of me for the last 16 years because of all these great ideas. Hey, one of the guys that really played a key part in that was this guy.
sure.
How do you think that happened? And how does that kind of,
Well, I know Jim, you have to remember Jim was the campaign manager for the mayor's campaign in 2010. And they've been good friends their whole life. So I get it. I mean, you have a friend that's helped you out and you've done things, and I'm sure you're gonna take that position to say, I'm going to endorse Jim. I don't have a problem with that, because endorsements go so far. They're helpful, but my goal is I have to get the message out, right?
Yeah.
I have to tell people, here's what I've done. Here's what I will do. You're the voter. You decide what you want to do.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm here. That's why I try to get out on social media. That's why I try to tell everybody, I do these things because I love the community. I do these things because I live here and I want to make it better.
I mean, I give you all the credit in the world to come in to my house, to my basement, to sitting here with two guys. And I mean, you haven't stuttered over questions. You haven't tried to avoid questions. And then, I mean, it's really just been you off the cusp, because these are, and I feel, my wife always asks me, like, how's it so easy for you to talk? I was like, I think when you're passionate about something, it comes through and it makes it very easy to remember certain things, discuss certain things. So I can tell that you're passionate about the community.
Well, I've been involved in, when the mayor has meetings and stuff, since I'm president, I go to all the meetings, right? So I'm involved in discussing the ideas, discussing what the best solution is. So I'm actively involved in these things already.
Yeah.
And, I feel like, I have, so much more to offer that I can push these ideas forward because I'm really passionate about it, as you said, that I hopefully can solve these problems to the best of my ability to make life better. You know, the goal of any kind of mayor is to just try to make life better for your residents, right? You try to provide an avenue to so that you wake up in the morning and have one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Any questions on this part of it? I want to actually go back into the previous mayors, some of the things that he's made, and get your opinion on them. But
Yeah, let's do that.
So I mentioned last night having a conversation with a local business owner, and one of the things that they mentioned was the previous mayor played a pretty significant part in not having like a marijuana business, retail or medical dispensary of any type inside the county, inside the city limits. Were you a part of that role? And then as overseeing budget and how big of a income possibility that is becoming now that it's legal and things like that, just like cigarettes or beer or anything else, do you see a opportunity to change? I know this is tough because it's one of those probably conversations that can go either way.
Well, I think the question is, you're talking about medical marijuana and you're talking about recreational. It's two different things, right? And when it came up, it was talking about medical, and my mother-in-law went through cancer and my mother went through cancer, and there is a benefit. The only thing that I think people really hate about marijuana, including me, is the smell.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
100%.
That is the problem. But you don't have to smoke it.
Right.
To get the benefits of marijuana. So I don't have any problem with using those things to help people that are suffering, right? To alleviate their pain. I don't have any problem with that. But again, I don't think we have to have places where you buy it to smoke it, but you can buy it for the gummies or from whatever you do to get the benefit that still help you. That's where you as a public official, you have to look at those issues and determine what is the best answer for that. And since it causes such a disruption with the smell, because I've been to Vegas when my daughter was there for one of her Simply 3 kind of conventions, and at the same time there was a marijuana convention.
Oh God!
So
I mean, you walk around Vegas now at any time.
It's just you know, I rather not smell it.
Yeah,
and I think most people are kind of like that. They say, hey, if you want to do it, good, knock yourself, but I don't want to do it, so don't make me do it.
Well, I mean, that's what they do with cigarettes.
Right, that they're gone too, and I think everybody feels better.
I mean,
if you want to smoke them at your house, smoke them. Hey, nobody has a problem
I'm a
with that.
smoker. I would never smoke inside my house. I mean, smoke cigars. But I love the fact that people don't smoke in restaurants, because even when I was a pack-a-day cigarette smoker, like I didn't want to be eating dinner and smell cigarette smoke. Right. So I think that was actually, I remember it was frustrating at first at the bars, but then it was like, who cares? It's like done over and done with.
I get it, but that's the same thing with that. I don't think the problem is so much the purpose of the use of it, because I think everybody agrees that if it's going to help somebody with their suffering, hey. We suffer enough in this world. Do it. But smoking it, you don't have to. So what?
And not only that, but as the mayor, where revenue and the budget are such a key part of the things that we're able to do for the city, why would we want to? Why would we want that revenue that's supporting other communities when it could be?
Well, you also have to remember that the federal law prohibits the sale. I don't know what class it is, class 1 or whatever, narcotic. Schedule 1 is that. So that's why you have a dichotomy here that you have to wrestle with. Every elected official takes an oath of office to uphold the Constitution. Now, I don't think it's in the Constitution that you can't sell marijuana, but it's a federal law. So the question is, now you're getting a little gray area. Can you support something that's violating a federal law? Because all local businesses and state businesses are supposed to follow federal law.
Sure.
So now you're wrestling with a legal concept. What do you do? Because if you allow it to happen, you're allowing something to violate federal law.
But now, I mean, Ohio's passed it as legal,
but it's still violating federal law. It didn't change the federal government has to change that.
They haven't had, not that I'm aware of. I haven't tracked any stories, but there are still in other states, California, Colorado, like where there are still federal seizures happening in that business. I've not heard of any in Ohio, but.
So they have to change that. If they change that again, I don't think we have any problem. I don't think many people would have any problem of non-smokable
dispensary or something.
Yeah.
That's actually, so having this conversation with you, like, one, it's tough, right? Because you don't want to upset people like that are like, no, we don't want a dispensary in town. But from the other side, I like how you looked at it in the sense of well, maybe a dispensary wouldn't be okay, but maybe it's a non-smokable dispensary. It's good for
Because
business.
there's purposes help people,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because if you're suffering, you want to be able to alleviate it, and that's the way you can alleviate it. What's the issue? Because nobody wants to see their parents suffer. Nobody wants to see somebody else suffer from a disease that you have no control over.
Sure.
Right? So I mean, these are difficult questions, and people always jump to the extremes of these issues, and there's always an answer that lies within that you have to look at and try to bring clarity to the problem and try to bring a solution that benefits the people you're trying to benefit. Right.
Sure.
Because
Look, I mean, your plan is pretty clear on what you see the future being.
Yep.
Looking back over the last couple of years, a couple of the big things that put some pressure on the community was the courthouse project a couple of years ago.
Yes.
You're a real estate attorney, and
Yes.
I believe there's quite a few lawsuits involved in that.
Yes,
project.
I was sued too. Yes.
Oh,
you personally?
congratulations!
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
it happens
It's
when
an
you're an elected
exclusive
official.
club.
Well, there you go.
What happened with that for somebody who doesn't quite understand it? Because I did not pay attention to what was going on with that.
Well, the
but-
main goal was, we do need a new municipal courthouse, right? And we wanted to join forces with the county because it would be more cost effective. Again, putting on the fiscally responsible hat.
so the municipal being the one by the police station.
Across the street on Elmwood.
on
Yeah,
Elmwood.
yeah,
Okay.
right across the street. That's the municipal courthouse. It's about 13,500 square feet. It's been there for a long time. The size isn't adequate. We need it. We know we need it to do something. And so, of course, we'd want to do something in collaboration with the county because we had it all done, and it was going to cost us about $7.8 million to join with the county, build it. We would share, economies because utilities, the intake system, the Sally port, we're all sharing that. So you don't have to double the cost. So that was a great thing, 7.8, and then we were sued. Because people wanted to save the courthouse. We wanted to save the courthouse too, meaning
The little courthouse on Elmwood?
no, we wanted to save the courthouse.
Oh, the main
the
courthouse.
main 1969 courthouse with
On
the
the
white
square.
pillars.
Yeah.
Right. It's an iconic building. Even though it's not an historic building, it's an iconic building, meaning people have been there taking pictures in front of it. It's kind of a tradition. It kind of shows Medina. So we wanted to save that too, and it was going to be saved. But then we were sued because there's some misinformation about money being spent. Did the county need to spend that money? Again, we were just a city. We're not the county. We wanted to try to save as much money as we could. So we were sued, and it stopped us. We had to pull out of the project. So what they did is took one floor off the courthouse, and we were out.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So we were out. So we had to figure another way. So we went back to the ballot to say, hey, we want to put the courthouse in the 69 building, which the voters said, okay, you could do that.
That's the building next door to it?
The one with the white pillars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going in there. That's what they're renovating right now.
Right.
But the problem is it's going to cost about $11.5 million.
Oh, my gosh.
More than
$7.8 million.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very frustrating for me because I don't like wasting, but we need to do it, right? Because we're stuck.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but we're going to try to pay for it differently. The city it makes up a portion of we're the county seat. Of course, the county seat is where the city's at. The city is a municipal court, but we serve 3/4 of the county. The municipal court serves 3/4 of the county.
Right.
So there's a special project fee that's on every ticket and everything that goes through the court. So those monies raised, it's about $220,000 a year, will help pay for the court over time. So it's not just the city residents paying for it. We try to have inclusion of everybody else helping to pay for it because we're not the only ones who use it.
Through people who get traffic citations and
Yeah,
such,
yeah.
or anybody that needs to or is required to use the court.
And it's controversial in and of itself because why are the people who get the tickets paying for it? Well, somebody's got to pay for it. So
Right.
we got to think of a solution that works.
So who does the suing in that case?
Well, it was just a resident. It was a taxpayer's lawsuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
So the
public-
community actually got together.
Well, some people in the community got together and they sued.
Started it
They
as a
sued
class.
that and they sued the mayor and I, and because we're always named individually because I'm
course.
president of council and the mayor's the mayor. So
course.
so we're involved in that.
Do you think that suit came about maybe just because of lack of understanding?
could have been
Like the way that you just
it could
explained
have
it
been,
to
yes,
me, it
yeah.
makes sense. Like, hey, we just cost ourselves $4 million.
I mean, people are passionate. You got to understand. You can do whatever you want. That's America. If you want to sue.
Right.
But it's just disappointing because I saw, and this is my opinion, I saw the value of saving people money by joining forces with the county.
And ultimately, you were still going to have the same iconic building there, right? It was just going to be a floor taller. Is that right?
That's correct.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it
But
is what it
that's-
is. It's still going to work out.
Yes,
And
but
then
it costs a little bit more money, and
and
it's
then
disappointing.
The
Yes.
city has the old building still that.
That we're going to use, and we're going to use that building, to jump into another discussion. Medina Metropolitan Housing Authority, we have a 3-year term lease there, but we're doing a study on the city hall services of how best we can better utilize, for the police department, for the planning department, maybe we move some departments over and use that building to make it more functional. So we're going through a study right now to make a determination of that because, we have a short-term lease with Medina Metropolitan Housing Authority, but we also could have a longer-term use of it for city services.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You brought up a couple of points, obviously regarding like the courthouse, like it serves Montville Township. It serves
3/4 of the county.
right. Why is it? And I understand the need for it. But for instance, you have like Montville Township. Like when I look at their police off the city Cowell building, and to me, I look at that and it's like a movie when you're like walking in there. And it's like an echo throughout the building because it's always empty and it's like enormous. And you're like walking down this hallway hearing your shoes click or whatever.
Right.
And then you get to the end and then there's like a bell. Like it just seems like an astronomical amount of waste to me. Is there not more room for cities, townships, counties to do more projects like you said where you're working
Yes.
together to better use funds?
There's always more room for that, but you have to remember that you do studies on it, like we talked about a fire district. And there's a point where a fire district makes sense. And that point has not arrived yet because the township's not big enough. But, because the cost, for the township will be more than the benefit that they will receive. So that's how everything is looked at. It's a cost benefit analysis. And we look at those things when we try to make our decisions and we try to make the best decision because why wouldn't everybody want to try to save money? Why does everybody need to buy a fire truck when fire trucks are $1 million?
Right.
So we try to share those. We do share those now, but in a bigger scheme of things about a fire district, about really sharing firefighters and over a big district that when I say district, I mean everybody in that district is contributing to the cost of it. Right now, we do already these collaborative agreements with sharing things with Montville, sharing things with Lafayette, sharing things with Medina Township. We share those things, but there's no district in place to pay for it.
So district would be essentially like, hey, I'm going to partner with Montville, Medina City.
And the taxpayers would pay into it.
But that taxpayer dollar that's already being generated would be paid, would be split, and it would be basically put into a big pot.
Yes.
And then you would devote it.
Because right now we have agreements and the township pays money, but it's not paid, like a levy. You know what I'm talking about? So they pay like a contract price for a year. We'll pay you $250,000 a year to help use your fire department. That's the contract arrangement, the contractual arrangement we have. But you're talking bigger things about districts and changing the way things are done. That's a little harder.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a little harder.
Getting people to work together. What else you got, David? Anything?
Well, speaking of people like working together and the community, now the mayoral race is a nonpartisan
Correct.
race.
Correct.
How do you feel the voters feel about that, especially in today's climate?
Well, I'm a voter and I love it because I think I think the whole country should be nonpartisan because I think people should learn about the candidate and not just press a button because they say, I feel like I'm a Republican or I feel like I'm a Democrat. So if you're one of those, I like you, when they have no idea what that person stands for. So I personally think it would solve a lot of problems in this country if we were all nonpartisan because you would actually have to learn about the candidate before you vote for them. I think that's the answer personally, because, if you don't know about the candidate, you shouldn't be voting.
Well, and I think, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I had the conversation, once again, this goes back to literally 2 nights ago or whatever it was. And I brought up your name versus the other one. And unfortunately, I think the city council site associates you with 27 years of party affiliation, right? And every conversation that I have, that's irrelevant information, but it's out there, and,
Right, it is.
and we're in a certain, unfortunately, we're in a politicized political market today where that affiliation, can hurt votes,
Which is unfortunate.
unintentionally.
Yeah, I get it.
But you're right in the sense that mayorally, it's not really relevant information.
No.
and in most cases, do you even really? I mean, I think the biggest problem with the party affiliation really is because you almost have to be agreed with all of one thing on your one party. Or
Yeah, no,
disagree.
that's what I disagree with, because I think, you know, even my grandfather, because, you know, I get that from my grandfather, and that, you know, that's probably the reason why, you know, I have these ideals that I have, because he was very fiscally conservative too. And I think, you know, when you go through life and you're raised on a farm, you have your own bank account, you spend your own money at your home, you think of, well, why can't everybody be fiscally conservative? Because you don't just go out and buy that sports car unless you have a midlife crisis, right? So you think before you spend your money. And I think that's how people should approach things, right?
Especially in the mayor's seat, right?
I would imagine that's how everything should be done. And that's really confuses me when people start talking, well, you're going to spend all the money. I said, do you even know who I am? I mean, that's the question you ask, because ever since day one on council, I've been the one that's probably saved the most money and doesn't let people spend money. And that's kind of a thing that I was just raised with. I mean, that's the thing you learn, because, you know, you get an allowance when you're a kid. You don't want to spend it all. You got to work for it. And so you get a concept of accountability of money. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that people, they don't understand. And I think in today's society, maybe through social media, they put labels on people so much that they don't take the time to think. And it's very disappointing to me, because I would think in our country, and I would have thought social media would have made people be more informed, but I think it's made them be less informed. And they just jump on bandwagons instead of thinking.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to pick a side versus off of specific, and then
That's always the wrong answer.
Right.
You know, it is. Because,
Well, and that's not only just politics. That's like everything.
right.
Yeah,
That is true.
That's everything.
Yeah, it's sad because, you know, especially, I mean, we're talking local governments, which is different than national.
Yes, very different.
When you get nationally, I think that you have a cross of politicians that maybe they don't actually think something is a good idea, but they almost have to co-sign
Yes,
it, because
yes.
otherwise they won't get the support. Where does your support come financially for the race?
I just, you know, from the people I work with, my friends, the constituents, you know, people who believe in my ability to lead, right? That's really where support all comes from, right? People believe that you're the best leader and you'll do the best job, they'll support you.
Yeah.
That's where your financial support comes from. And, you know, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's businesses, sometimes it's clients, sometimes it's the residents. So when you get your message out on Facebook, they read that and they say, I believe in that message, so I will support you. I understand races cost money, so I will support you in that endeavor.
That's
So
awesome.
That's what it should be about. That's why it kind of baffles me sometimes when people talk about the national politics and they talk about people supporting people and all this other stuff. It's like, well, know the candidate. Because if you ask me the questions, that's why I want to be here to tell people, learn about me.
Yeah.
Because I think if you learn about me, you understand where I've come from and where I'm going and why I make the decisions the way I make them. Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I'm not here to do it for myself. I'm here because I love it. You know, I love the idea of solving a problem. That's what I do.
Do you have anything you want to add on that?
No, I answered my question.
Maybe I talk too much.
No, not at all.
no,
I mean,
we
I
love
think
it.
you're a very open. I think that you've been
Yeah.
willing to talk on any single discussion. You know, it's funny. I told him, like, we don't want the idea of like, oh, got him. He's here. He's going to have to answer these. You know, I was like, I do want to ask him some questions about political affiliation, because I feel like that unfortunately affects the voter's mind, especially here locally.
It does, and it's disappointing to a certain extent. And I think that the true answer is get to know the candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. I
That's-
hope that
that's the
people
answer.
are watching tonight and doing that, because, you know, you're going to possibly be mayor. You're going to have to deal with right now the national political problems that are being brought to our local community.
Well, they'll
on a
affect,
day-to-day
cutting
basis.
the funding, a lot of things that's going to affect us. But again, we're in good shape to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, even as far as the protests and stuff that have been happening inside the square, like, it's more and more abundant. It's great to see someone that's like, hey, let's all just come together.
But you got to remember too, as a lawyer,
Yeah.
you know, there's you have the Constitution, you have First Amendment rights, and as long as everything's done civilly, I think this is a great exercise. Maybe this will help people get their ideas and frustrations out. I think that's a great thing. Get it out and maybe talk. Maybe they'll talk now.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but they'll argue first. But you got to argue before you can talk, and maybe we can get people to start talking. That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I 100% agree.
great.
I did have a couple other questions. I was going to see if you wanted to pop in on real quick, but is there a challenging aspect to Medina, just in the way that it's bigger than people think.
Yes.
And it's almost it's expanding on different levels and trying to find a way to marry those. Like we talked about the Common Grounds area,
Yes.
which Mike and Will have put a tremendous amount of effort in business. I think I just saw they're bringing a winery in there, which is awesome. And then obviously you have the square, and then you have the exchange that's kind of just expanded down a little bit. You have Black Cat Books and that area, and then
But you also have the fairgrounds,
the fairgrounds,
the airport.
right, all the way up to 18,
Yes,
and then you
yes.
have the main strip of the Walmart.
Yes,
and all
yes,
that.
retail, yes.
It's everything's so spread out. I don't want to eventually see us become like a Brunswick where like every other building's not occupied.
No,
is that
no.
part of your responsibility?
Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, that has been a responsibility of not only the mayor's office, but council as a whole and the residents. You remember about 15 years ago, the square, there was a lot of vacancies on the square. I don't know if you recall that. So we made it a concerted effort, with the chamber, with Main Street Medina, to focus on the square to make it a vital and viable commerce center, right? So everybody comes. So how do you do it? You got to bring people. So we try to come up with ideas, the Christmas lights. How do you bring people to come to Medina? And, we've been named, I think just recently, I saw one of the top 5 places. You might want to look this up. It just came up. We were one of the top 5 places that were identified of something, of being.
I think the square was specifically.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were one of the top 50 places to celebrate Christmas in the country by HGTV.
Really?
HGTV. Yes. That was a few years ago. We were named that because of all the Castle Noel, the lights, the trees.
Do you have a tree lighting ceremony along with the lights?
Yes, we do.
I couldn't remember. I
Yes,
don't think
we
I've
do.
been to that the
Yes,
last couple
we
of
do.
years, but
Yes,
that's
we do.
awesome.
Yes, we do. So those bring people together.
Yeah.
So those are things that we have to look at. Now we have to look at how do we do that to the airport? How do we do that to the fairgrounds? How do we keep this energy going? Because we are centrally located, right? We're about 25 miles from Cleveland, 25 miles from Akron. We are in a great location that we could take advantage of this because people want to come and experience the small town feel and atmosphere, and we can provide that. So I think if we can just keep building on that, we can build these other areas, and people want to go out at night, like they wanted to go to the Common Grounds. They want to go to Blue Herring, which is outside the city. They have those Friday night things. Well, you could do something like that at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
So why not just, because people want to get involved like that, so we just have to provide the opportunity for them to do that.
How do we do that? How does as a community? And
One
as
step at a
mayor?
time.
Left, right.
Well,
That's
I think
right.
so. I think this is a conversation my wife and I have always had. Is it's not a big city, so there's no taxis. There's not any really Ubers out this area.
True.
So it's like, if I want to have a night out, maybe I want to start at the square, grab some dinner, then I want to go to the Common Grounds, have a couple of drinks at Picklebacks.
You find out from people like you what the issues are and what the challenges are for you to enjoy that. What are your challenges? You just mentioned, well, there's no Ubers. Okay, how do we help solve that problem? Is there a way we could do that? Maybe it's, we could get into the autonomous vehicles. I mean, that's out in other states already. Maybe that's one solution. Maybe we start incorporating that in to provide cars on loops that take people to certain places and pick them up on a constant loop. And maybe those are the questions that, those issues are the questions that we need to answer. And you can bring them up, and you bring them up as they happen, right? Because you experience them, then you say, these are my problems, and this is what I can see as an opportunity. How do we get there?
Well, and I think too now with the hotel coming up in the square,
Yes.
and like I said, the Common Grounds, and finding some way to be able to. I wish those train tracks were a little bit more convenient, but it'd be cool to have like a trolley or something that went
Sure.
back and forth throughout the night, and once again, eliminate some of the traffic, utilizes some of those parking garages,
Right, yeah.
but helps boost all these businesses at once because it's hard when they're separated to boost each
Yes.
other without taking from
We've
another.
always talked about, they had the Polar Express down in off the CVSR out of the national parks that comes from Independence that drives down to.
That's what I was talking about earlier. That runs.
I've
over
always
that
wanted
diagram.
that to come to Farmers Exchange because they can come from Oberlin and drive and stop, and we are a Christmas town, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect.
But that's a bigger challenge. But
Yeah.
we talked about it, but it could happen. But it'll take years
Well,
to happen.
I sent you a link if you want to see if you wanted to load up. There's a news clip on this.
Where did you send it to?
We were
me?
the top,
texted
top
to
5
you.
something. What were we?
Yeah, Medina, Ohio, and Northeast Ohio City has received national recognition from HGTV as one of America's best small towns to visit for Christmas.
Yes, that was
For 39 years, Medina has flipped the switch for the holiday season in style, so on and so forth. So I
Listen,
sent.
it's called Connect
Oh,
Team, and
shoot,
it's
hold on
in.
a second here. We got a commercial. Let's mute that for a minute, folks. Give me just a minute here while I try to figure this out.
Oh, Mayor McCheese trying to come back in here.
He's trying to steal the show.
Man.
Let's see. Share screen. Share screen.
But yes, we've been recognized, and that's great. I think at one of the Rose Day parades a few years ago, they copied our gazebo and made it into flowers, and it was
Oh,
in
wow.
the Rose Day parade. Yes,
Dang, here
so
it is right here.
we get a lot of good accolades for things that we do.
Christmas tradition continues to grow.
This one is next to perfect.
At the center of Medina, tradition glistens.
I
Look
think
at that.
Medina's got all the right elements for an amazing holiday experience. It's almost like being in a movie set. I think people like the charm of Medina. It's got this quintessential look to it.
For 39 years, Medina has flipped the switch for the holidays at the center of the city. This year, Medina was recognized by HGTV as one of the best small towns in America to visit for Christmas.
His narrator
Mayor
voice
Dennis
slightly
Ringwald credits the
better than
community.
mine, I guess.
Year in, year out, they
I mean,
come
this is cool. You got to
together
take some
Yes,
pride in this
yes.
because you're like, I played a part in that.
Yes, I did. Yes,
Uh,
very excited. Very excited about that.
And now here you are, hoping to
show
do
Yeah.
it again, right?
Yes,
really,
yes.
really work together.
Stop that for a second.
Those are things that we can do, right? I mean, we're a small town, right? Everybody loves a small town. Everybody says, "Oh, we go to Medina because of the square." I work in Akron every day, and I go to my people at work say that they drive to Medina just to experience that. They go to the farmers market. They come during the holiday season. They go eat at the restaurants just because they want to feel that. Because in a lot of communities, they don't have anything close to what we can offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, so with my wife just actually commented. She goes, "Any thoughts on traffic flow and the Court Street and how the new hotel is going to affect that?"
Well, yeah, everything's gonna impact it. I would hope the hotel would affect it positively, because you have to remember right now, everybody goes to a hotel by 18 and 71, and they drive here. So with the hotel being here, they'll park their car and they'll walk. So I'm hopeful that there'll be less traffic.
Makes
right?
sense.
I mean, because they're here.
Right.
They don't have to
Yeah.
drive here. So hopefully that'll have a positive impact.
But
on
their
it.
parking entrance, I think, is on what's the street?
Elmwood.
Yeah, on Elmwood,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yes.
I know it's
Yes.
just a valet
Yes.
in the front.
Yes.
So
So it should have a positive impact, or less people driving through town.
All right, the question that everybody wants to hear: how do they decide the businesses that come into town? Because
Well-
for some reason, we always think there's not enough food places
And too many mattress places.
and too many mattress and oil change places.
We
which
have
there
enough-
are a lot.
we have enough room for at least 3 more grocery stores along North Court too.
Yeah, how does all that get? You're
Well-
right, because David's channel just did there's like 10, 11.
There's we just did a little video. Oh, well, at the corner of Reagan and North Court, if you're standing there, there's let's just say 7 grocery options there. Now, 200,000 vehicles pass that intersection daily, so there's a lot of traffic there, obviously. But
Well, you have to remember, and as a real estate person, you'd appreciate this. Businesses, we don't say, well, we want a Chick-fil-A or we want a Chipotle. They don't listen to us say that.
Right.
What they do is they do their own studies, right?
Yeah.
So apparently, that when they do these studies, there's enough demand in the area that'll service all those mattress places, all those grocery stores, because they won't locate here unless there's a study done
Right.
and they're going to make money. So it's kind of out of our hands to a certain extent. It's the residents and the community that dictates what shows up here.
with
So,
the dollar,
I can
With the dollar.
understand. I can understand that, but at the same point in time, you as mayor still get a say on if that business comes in here or not.
No.
Do you not?
If it qualifies and satisfies the zoning regulations, which there's different zoning districts in it, and if you're allowed to put a restaurant, because it doesn't identify what type of restaurant, but if you qualify as a restaurant, any restaurant that qualifies for that can locate there. I can't, as mayor, say I don't want you to come here.
Gotcha.
Chick-fil-A. I don't want you to come here. Cane's Chicken or whatever it is. I don't
just-
have any ability to say that. the ability derives from the zoning code of the traffic that's generated, the restaurants, the outdoor, whatever, drive-through. That's what governs it.
As a resident, though, that's got to be tough because you have to look at it as like, okay, it's great that we have a Myers now, but is Bueller's going to survive? Or you know what I mean?
That's a good question.
and
Probably because they're different. Everyone that comes in those grocery stores, they serve a different demographic.
I agreed, but at the same point in time, people aren't coming from out of town to shop at a grocery store.
No,
So
well,
it's
the townships are.
You're right. I guess that is outside the city.
Yes.
But don't you then have to worry like, okay, well, if one of these companies falters and now I have a big open empty building, and I guess you just got to hope somebody's going to take that.
Have you heard of Kmart?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we learned this in school, right? It's a laissez-faire type of government, the capitalist economy. That's what it's a competition.
Right.
So that's a good and bad in a way because it'll make the other, grocery stores maybe be more competitive.
Right.
So I get it, but that's how things change. Because we still we don't have those bank buildings. We used to have a lot of bank buildings around the square. A lot of the banks are gone.
Yeah,
they're not on the square anymore.
Right.
So that's going to happen. So you just have to be able to make sure that there is another business that's going to fill in that business. Like Myers, Kmart was gone for years, but they were paying on their lease. That's why they never left, because they still had an obligation to pay. So that's why it was vacant, but still there. And now Myers is here, and maybe there's something else that's going to come. And if Myers goes away, something else will fill it in.
Do we know why the parking lot is blocked off there? There's the gates there.
I don't know.
Have you seen all the online talk about that?
Well, I just saw that it was for the seagulls. I thought.
A Mayor candidate with a sense of humor. All right, I got 3 questions here for you.
Okay.
First, somebody suggests making it illegal to feed deer.
We do have an ordinance in place that if the deer are being fed and it causes a nuisance, it's called a nuisance ordinance.
Okay.
To your neighbor, you could call and they will get fined.
All right.
So there is something in place already.
And then also somebody saying, who puts the limit on how many deer you're allowed to shoot? Is that something that the city can?
ODNR. The ODNR dictates how many deer through tag numbers. They get tagged. I think it's like 4 tags a county. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
But on our ordinance, you can get more, and they give us more.
Okay.
So I think there was up to 9 last year that you could tag in the city.
Okay.
So we don't have control, because just remember, the public, we don't own the deer. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources own them, and we have to comply with what they say.
Gotcha.
Of the 18 taken,
one person did 9.
Two people did all the work there.
Yes,
9
yeah,
each.
yeah.
Not really, but probably.
Let's see. I think that is it. Anybody else have any questions? We're gonna get ready to wrap this up. We really appreciate, John, you coming and being a part of the podcast.
Not a problem. I
and
enjoy
answering
being here,
questions.
and people check me out. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website. I have videos out that I talk about what I would do and what the issues are in the city. And you could listen to them. And if you want to have a question, you could ask me. But I just want to make sure when you go to the voting booth, you don't stand there and flip a coin. You vote for a coin, right?
I like that. Look at
Wow.
that. Man.
So be educated when you vote. That's all I ask.
I mean, I think you've done a great job of spelling it out. And Jim, if he's out there listening, and or any of his partners, we're still happy to have you on as well and hear what you're running for, because we want to make this an open and fair conversation. But
or Mayor McCheese, if he wants to come back, we'll have him on too.
But it's been really a pleasure. You've been an awesome guest, and I appreciate you answering all our questions and putting up with all of our banter. But
No, I appreciate coming on. If I do win, I'll come back.
yeah, absolutely. And then if people want to ask you a question individually, what's the best way to do that?
You can go on my Gmail at coinformayor@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, coinformayor.com, and click on the thing and ask a question, and it goes to my Gmail account anyways, and I'll answer.
Did you get a lot of questions throughout the day?
I get some. I've been getting a lot of people asking me differing things that they don't understand how things work, and so I just answer them to say this is what it means, and then they ask me questions about some of my positions, and I say, here's my website, but here's my answer.
Yeah.
So I answer them.
It's we'll end off with this, but like I said, it's been really a pleasure having you here just to kind of explain some of the situations within local governments that, as a resident, I didn't ever truly understood. Like, I would have had no guess that the mayor had nothing to do with the school board or the school system.
nothing.
Like, nothing at all involved in that at all.
Not at all.
You are essentially the mom and dad for all of the Citizens Bank account.
Correct. For the city, for things that get done, we and we usually tell the kids this when the elementary kids come in to council or the Boy Scouts, we say, well, we make sure that the streets are plowed so you can go to school. And they go, oh man, we don't want you to plow the streets. It's like, well,
Just lost that vote.
We have to, yeah. So, they understand then about how things get done. If nobody picked up the garbage, where would it go?
Yeah.
So you got to understand where that happens, how that happens.
Absolutely. Well, hey, for those that have listened and stayed this long, we really appreciate you. Hopefully, you've learned quite a bit about Mayor Candidate Coyne and his race for the Medina City Mayorship. And if you have any other questions, you know how to get them. We'll put links in the descriptions below. But appreciate you guys joining. Make sure you like, subscribe, and thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, John.
Good night, everybody.
In every word we begin to reveal truth in every tale as our lives